So we'll go ahead and kick things off by having dinner. So if everybody wants to eat, go for it. All right, good evening, everybody. We will go ahead and kick things off. Can I get a motion to reconvene from recess this special budget meeting, April 30th, 2025? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we are now back in session. Who do we have tonight? Looks like business development. Hey, that's what I turned to. Cool.
Awesome. Okay, everybody ready? Great. Okay, I'm Ashley Nowell. I'm the Business and Economic Development Director for the town of Waxhaw. So tonight we are going to talk through our budget. But first, I want to talk through the goal of our department. So the goal of our department is to support all businesses within the town of Waxhaw and encourage and facilitate commercial development to improve our commercial tax base. Currently, our tax base is 89% residential, 11% commercial, and the services that our department provides is really to help move the needle on that tax base.
Sorry, our monitors aren't on.
No.
Okay.
You guys give me a thumbs up when they're up and ready. Okay. So like I said, goal is to provide support to all businesses within the town of Waxhaw and encourage and facilitate commercial development in order to improve our commercial tax base. Our current tax rate ratio is at 89% residential, 11% commercial. And the services that our department provides helps move the needle on that ratio to add more commercial, a larger commercial tax base, so the burden isn't so much on our residents. I also want to give a history of our department. So we were created in 2021 when we created the downtown department that provided a full-time staff member. And this is required in order to be accredited by Main Street America as an accredited Main Street community. This service and resource of a full-time person that's dedicated to building relationships didn't exist previously. So this resource, a person that our businesses and downtown stakeholders could bounce ideas off of, share market data with, talk about potential business growth, and then ultimately advocate for businesses, was really a game changer for our downtown businesses as well as our downtown property owners. We then established the Downtown Waxhaw Association in December of 2022. This group serves as the leading resource and advocate for all things downtown and helps promote our downtown as a destination to our region. It provided the town and our downtown stakeholders with additional monetary and in-kind resources for special projects and increased promotional reach as we market downtown as a destination. As we built the department and expanded the services and relationships that we made deepened, we felt a need to provide additional services townwide. We thought that if we could build strong relationships in our downtown area, we could then mirror those relationships and services townwide too. We transitioned to the Business Development Department in July of 2023 with goals to expand our staff and services. And then in January 2024, we hired an additional full-time staff member to help with the communications and promotions, and that made our department a team of two. So our department encourages and facilitates that commercial development through the retention of current businesses as well as the recruitment of new businesses to Waxhaw. Ultimately, all of this is made possible through the maintenance of strong relationships with town departments as well as our community partners. I've listed here a lot of the community partners that we work with. This is not an exhaustive list. Each of these partners represents at least one individual relationship that I'm upkeeping on a regular basis. You see the Downtown Waxhaw Association and the Waxhaw Business Association highlighted. The Downtown Waxhaw Association, we serve as administrative support for that nonprofit. And then the Waxhaw Business Association, I serve on that board as well. I also wanted to provide a really clear example of how these relationships work within the what that we're doing in our department. So we had a business owner that came to me about a little over a year ago. Her name's Elizabeth. She had this really creative idea to create a kids' play cafe here in Waxhaw that provided play as well as coffee and community for our moms and kids in the area. She had this cool idea but had no idea where to start. So I connected her with Renee at South Piedmont Community College. They have a small business center there that offers free resources to our community. So she was able to go to South Piedmont, get some hands-on support to create that business plan. And she actually came back in January of this year with a fully thought-out business plan, as well as how she learned how to sustain her business long-term. At that point, she had a space that she was interested in, but wasn't sure the next step. Typically, we can connect people interested in opening a business in Waxhaw with our local realtor and broker connections. And she already had a space she was looking at. So I was able to review her lease with her to make sure that she had really good representation in that lease and that she was going to be able to sustain this location long term. She also had a contractor for the space, but she needed an architect to design that space and help go through our processes here with the town. And so we were able to connect her with local service providers for her architecture services. Over the last year, we have also in our department developed a step-by-step guide that walks people through how to start a business in Waxhaw. And it can often be very confusing. People just don't know where to start or who to go to. So in this step-by-step guide, it tells you exactly who you need to talk to along the way. And we're able to stand alongside our businesses as they're getting started. So we were able to connect Elizabeth with our planning department as she needed her signs and zoning permits. And we connected her with our building inspections department as she did all of her construction permits. She also needed a new brand. She needed to market this business. So we were able to connect her with a fellow WBA member who does branding for local small businesses in Waxhaw. As she started construction, she realized she needed some additional capital to get her over that final finish line. So we have a connection through the Union County Chamber who works at a local bank and is able to do SBA loans. So we were able to introduce the two of them, and he was able to provide some additional capital for that business. We're hoping later this year, this summer, we'll officially have her ribbon cutting to help her open. But our services to her aren't going to stop there. Once she opens, we want to make sure that we're retaining her and helping sustain her business long-term here in Waxhaw. There are some other examples today. If you have been watching the news today, we've had a busy day downtown. Queen City News was live from downtown this morning, so we had a really good time hosting them. But I think today was just a really good example of how we do what we do and how that manifests in a normal day. So Queen City came to us last week, really excited to shoot live from downtown. We had the relationships with Jason Harper and then their producers. We were able to connect them with our Marcom team so that our marketing team could handle all of the logistics and all of the other departments that were involved in making today happen. While that was going on, we were also hosting a property owner coffee. So we had several property owners that came in talking about facade grants, when upcoming infrastructure projects are set to happen, what new projects, new businesses are opening in town. After that, we had open office hours all morning and afternoon. We had a business owner that came in to talk about third-party events. So we have to know what process do they need to go to? What ABC rules do they need to follow? We also are able to connect them with other local events that are happening that they can then sponsor to get their name out there. Also, during our open property hour, we had a local investor that came by. This is a connection that we made through another downtown property owner who's really interested in investing in commercial product in town. And when people come to us with that, we have to know all about zoning regulations. What types of businesses are allowed in which zoning district? What types of development are they allowed to do by right? Are they going to have to do a conditional zoning? What land is available, if it's listed or not listed? We need to be aware of those things so we can help build those connections. And we also need to be aware of upcoming projects. Who's doing what project and when is it moving? And how does that work with our infrastructure and roadways too? We also have to be aware of utilities. So I think you can see that how we do it is so involved in our relationships with all of our groups here. And we truly have to have such a wide array of what's going on, a wide array of knowledge of what's going on here in town so we can help provide accurate info. I've listed here some of our department's priorities and how they fit into our retention and recruitment buckets. Each bucket has partners and relationships that we work with that make these possible. I did want to point out, for an example, the creating active public spaces and public art. That's something we partner really closely with Parks and Rec, the Public Art Committee, our Union County Arts Council, property owners, business owners, as well as local artists on. So it truly takes a village and a team to get done what we need to get done. In addition to working with all of those private groups, we also work with our town departments very closely. We work with Parks and Rec on events that happen in town. We work with our planning and engineering departments on historic preservation, having that knowledge of new developments, what types of business are going to go in there, any road and sidewalk improvements that are happening, infrastructure and utility improvements. And we work with our public services team on the look and feel of downtown, making sure our pots and planters are watered and our plants look great, and it's a visually appealing downtown that people want to visit and then therefore spend money. We work with the police department on public safety, making sure that our businesses have a great connection when they need something from our police department. They know exactly who to call, and they know that they're dealing with a friendly face. Because we have so many of the relationships in the community, our department office often serves as the first point of contact, and then we help route them to the specific people they need to talk to in town. The retention and recruitment of our businesses and the relationships that I've fostered over the last 4 years have led to some really great impact. I've included some of those numbers here for you today. In the last year in 2024, we had 1.6 million visitors to downtown Waxhaw. Since 2021, we've had 219 net new jobs, 25 net new businesses, and we've logged over 6,500 volunteer hours, which totals more than $188,000 in in-kind support. We've had $9 million in public investment and $98.7 million in private investment. What that means is for every $1 that the city invests in improvements downtown, that generates almost $11 in investment by our downtown businesses. And we've also increased our engagement in the downtown area specifically. So we have had an increased number of responses on our downtown survey, increased attendance in our new monthly property owner and downtown merchant drop-ins. We do quarterly networking events with our Downtown Waxhaw Association and the Waxhaw Business Association. We have a monthly action team meeting, and we see increased participation from our volunteers in those. We've also increased our followers on our downtown social media accounts, and then have over 300 newsletter subscribers and 12,000 downtown website views since that launched last fall. Our department oversees more than $314 million in retail sales townwide, and our services affect more than 4,000 employees that work here in the town of Waxhaw. We have really seen the fruits of our labor over the last 4 years that our department has been in existence. And that engagement is now turning into really strong relationships, regular meetings and phone calls, and ultimately getting invited to the table. People think of Waxhaw and think of us and regularly ask us for advice and ask us where they should go and what their next step should be. So here is a list of our department budget. It includes staffing for 2 full-time as well as a part-time requested position. It includes professional service agreements, training and travel, our market data system, printing costs, maintenance, event supplies, holiday lights for our downtown trees in our buildings, streetscape decorations like banners and furniture, as well as our parking leases. So the total amount in our budget this year is $479,444. We did make some cuts to this budget. So the Economic Development Strategic Plan is a thing we were proposing for FY26. We did cut that down in the budget. It's currently listed in your budget documents as $20,000. We're recommending, as you guys look at cuts, to cut that completely. We had, like I said, originally listed that in for $25,000. We recommend cutting that out of the budget. We were also proposing new holiday lights for our downtown trees. We had a lot of issues last year with the wet weather that we had in December with our downtown lights tripping. So our lighting company has found another option that makes it less likely for water to get into those joints, and the cost difference there is $70,000 for the new or $42,000 as is. So we're recommending staying with the lighting as is this year. And then we also cut our travel for our volunteers for conferences. We have in the past paid for hotel stays and mileage for our volunteers, but we have cut that out of the budget just as a recommendation from the admin staff. So that's a total savings of $55,000 from that budget. Since we've last spoken, we have also adjusted our request for our staff position, ultimately because we desperately need the help now. While we could use full-time and that would really expand our capacity in the department, we need the relief and support right now. We've adjusted the position to part-time admin assistant, and the cost of that would be $21,700. As I mentioned, our department has been very successful over the last few years. We have built very strong relationships, and that's exactly what we want. That's what we built the department for, and that was our goal, was to build those relationships and be that leading resource in the area as businesses and people are looking to invest in Waxhaw. We've created a name for ourselves. We have a great standard of service. We provide really good support to businesses. And ultimately, Waxhaw is known as business friendly because of the work our department has put in. This has turned into regular meetings, phone calls, requests for support or data, and technical assistance, which has allowed us, or has caused us to accumulate additional hours on necessary admin tasks. Our staff for this year, just the first quarter from January to March, has logged 102 overtime hours. Just for perspective, this is 3 times the amount that we logged for the entire year of 2024. Our current lead time for meetings is about 4 to 6 weeks. So when a small business needs support, if we don't have open business hours, we're looking at a 4 to 6 week scheduling out for those meetings. And then pop-up items like budget meetings, budget presentations, projects that need immediate attention. That means that we have to cancel meetings, that we're not returning phone calls, or we're pushing off projects for weeks or months. This is not the standard of service that we seek to provide. It's unsustainable long-term with 2 staff, and it will ultimately lead to Waxhaw not being a business-friendly place. In order to grow our department and ultimately grow that commercial tax base and businesses in Waxhaw, I need to start working, as business leaders say, not in the business, but on it. We've got to get above the day-to-day tasks and start improving our systems and operations in order to grow our commercial tax base townwide. We need to get above that day-to-day and begin recruiting businesses to come here, going out and doing that recruiting, and going out and working with those people that have showed interest in investing in our community. This admin position allows us to do some open office hours for limited walk-in traffic. They would be that first point of contact as people come in to answer some simple questions. They would answer phone calls and emails, do some basic bookkeeping for the department, schedule meetings for us, and help out with event planning that our staff is responsible for too. So I know that's a lot of information, but I would love to answer any questions that you guys have about the budget at this time.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, the overtime hours, how much of that would you say is driven by events?
Little, actually. So the only event that we took part in this year was, so far this year in that first quarter, was the St. Patty's Day event. So we spent probably 12 hours on Saturday and then another 8 on Sunday. But prep for it obviously is a lot too. Again, that's a third-party event, not a Town of Waxhaw event. Yeah.
Okay, and I know a significant part of what you do is the Main Street program, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was looking back at what your budget started at years ago was $144,000. Now last year was $429,000. How much of that would you say is mitigated by the Main Street program? I know you've talked about it before, but I don't remember exactly the numbers.
Absolutely. So we get a lot of support from our state Main Street group. So it's run by the Department of Commerce. So they provide in-kind volunteer, in-kind free support for us as a part of being a part of that program. They do site visits with us once a year. They do technical assistance as needed. We also get free entry to two free entries into their conference each year, as well as free trainings throughout the year too. So there's a lot that we get from them that we don't have to pay for just by being an accredited, recognized community.
Is there some relationship to grants as well?
There are, yeah. So the Department of Commerce right now has been very focused on Helene recovery. So a lot of their grants have been going to Western North Carolina, but they do often have grants that our small businesses can apply for, as well as grants that we as a city can apply for, as long as we're a Main Street program. The ones I've seen most recently are tied to Helene recovery. They actually released one this week that is great for communities that had damaged infrastructure from Helene. I don't think that we had any damaged infrastructure that affected small businesses, but in typical years where there's not a major disaster, there are grants that are just available to Main Streets.
And that's grants for the businesses, not necessarily to the town?
It's
right?
both, actually.
Right, okay.
Yeah, there's grants that are specifically for small businesses, as well as grants that the town could apply for infrastructure projects, public art. Really, it runs the gamut on things that the town could apply for as well. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Hall?
I actually had a question for Rosemary as it pertains to the budget for business development. I was just curious, in the subcategory 493690 are the holiday lights
Right.
under business development? Why did we choose to put it there instead of under Parks and Rec, which also has a specific lights in downtown subsection?
So that is where Ashley had listed the lights. So her lights are for the trees in the downtown area.
Mm-hmm.
The Parks and Rec lights are specifically for the park areas.
Mm-hmm.
So they each include their own maintained lighting and decorations, as you will, in their own budgets.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's a value in just like
It's
centralizing that, because isn't it, it's Parks and Rec or it's probably facilities management who installs it, if that's, no?
It's
Who
still-
installs them?
They use the same vendor.
Oh, okay.
They do. They use
Okay.
the same vendor. It's just they break it out based on what their needs are.
Okay.
So, I mean, we certainly could put it all in one budget, it's all the same pool of money, so it wasn't. I did not think that we would need to worry about that because Parks and Rec is directing theirs. Ashley is directing how she wants hers displayed, and so this way it gives them some control over what their needs are.
Sure, yeah, I understand. I guess I was coming from a purely financial perspective, where if we're managing the lights in one category, and perhaps we're better able to manage the performance of those lights over time, because I do see a special note that was made where, you made a special note that they might be aging out. And if they were perhaps in one departmental category where we're kind of monitoring them all together, perhaps there's savings when, as we're managing that, and as they come up for renewal, whatever, maybe there's a more, how do you say, like a bulk savings, so to speak. But if it's managed by two separate departments completely, then we might lose focus on, or not have full visibility into the performance of them as a whole.
Okay. I mean, we can certainly take
It was just an idea. It
I'll
doesn't
note
matter.
too, our lighting guy, Jason, we both work with him together, and when things are ready to be replaced and go out, we do work on that, simultaneously.
And we also coordinate together about install. So when the Christmas lights are happening in the park and the tree, we're also doing it in the downtown as well. So when they're mobilized, we are saving on the cost.
So Jason treats it as one account on his end.
Yeah.
It's ultimately just coming out of
Not me, Jason.
not you, Jason. Lighting Jason.
Lighting
It's
Jason.
ultimately from him. It's one account. It's just coming out of two budgets for us.
Right. Right, so it's coming out of two budgets. So I guess that's another part of the point, is that, how much are we spending on lights? You have to add up the budgets from two different departments, I suppose.
I mean, if you would prefer, if the board would prefer to see it in one budget, we can certainly manage to move that. Since the budget is not final, I mean, they can absolutely share the control over how they want their lights displayed and still pay out of one budget line. So I have no issue with taking care of that for you.
It was when we didn't have lights in the downtown park. The only other place in downtown we had lights was at David Barnes Park. And so that was, we managed that out of one budget, out of my budget, because I handled the full light contract. When Dena got the new park, we were able to split those two out, but we can absolutely put them back together and pay them out of one envelope.
Well, yeah, it's also, I guess, it would help your budget as well, right? Because it might appear to be, there's extra in there because you also have some lights in your budget that might be building that up as well. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Can I just, Ashley, you said you're cutting $2,000 for travel for volunteers for conferences. Just looking at the breakdown here of your department's overall training and travel, there's $8,000 for training and $14,400 for travel, total $22,400. So you're cutting $2,000 for volunteers for conferences. Is there no room for further cuts in travel and training?
So we, sorry, let me pull up my notes on the training budget. So we prioritized our training budget this year to focus more on the economic development relationships. So one of the things included in there is actually a leadership training cohort with both Dena and Emily. I that is something we could cut from our budget, the three of us. We've included $1,300 for some IEDC training, which is the International Economic Development Council. This is in order to get the Certified Economic Development certification. I also received a scholarship for that, so there will be some savings there. The other bulk of that are those NCEDA conferences. They do 4 or 5 conferences a year, and that's really where those relationships are built with businesses looking for specific locations, those site selectors, as well as investors looking to go to different communities. So that is where a lot of our training has come in. For the travel budget, it does include travel for our downtown master plan consultant. So $4,500 of that travel budget is just for that downtown master plan consulting work.
Okay, and you said the wingspan is one you could do without? Okay.
Dena and Emily are in that too, but that is something that we could cut if we needed to.
Yeah, because I see that the total that we spend on wingspan training, everybody, is $38,000 a year. It's a pretty good chunk. We could maybe cut the entire thing.
Yeah, Wingspan has been just a great course for us to develop our leadership skills, but also to learn to communicate effectively among our departments. And that was something that Dena, Emily, and I were really excited to dig deeper into. I'm sure there are other leadership courses that the three of us could look at, other options that aren't as expensive.
And the conferences, there was 5, and there are connections for investors. Is there any way to track the data on how many investors may have come to Waxhaw from that?
Yeah, absolutely. We can start tracking contacts from those.
Just so that we can see, the
ROI.
Yeah.
Great. If there's no other questions then, we will move on to the next. All righty. Thank you, Ashley.
Good evening, Emily Learned. I'm here to talk about the Human Resources Department budget for the fiscal year 25-26. So I'm actually going to skip ahead to the next slide, and then I'll come back to this one, just to kind of give you a budget comparison. So for fiscal year 24-25, the one we're in, the budget is $48,600, and then the projected for 25-26 is $524,538. That's an increase of 7.93%. This is due just to inflation. The cost of goods and services has gone up a lot, so that's reflected kind of in why those increases are there. That's a bulk of it, but we have found some ways to cut in a few areas, which I will go over those. So here are the contents of the HR budget. We really do try to keep it as reasonable as we can. Many of these items are just flat fees for services, kind of out of our control for the most part. Things like the admin fees, EAP annual cost, Dominion payroll HRS fees. Those are kind of just what they are. The largest cost in our budget is, of course, our salary and benefits for our HR staff. That's myself and our support staff too. So Gabriella Gervais, she's also on the HR team. So that's just us two. So got the salary and benefits cost, but a large chunk of the budget as well is the workers' comp insurance, and that goes up based on claims. So that's gone up. Just kind of with the claims history, that drives that price up. I'm actually working on the workers' comp insurance renewal right now, and Rosie actually found something in the invoice we've been paying quarterly, but there is actually an opportunity to save a few $1,000s if we do it invoice annually. So, it's at least a few $1,000s that we could save just by doing that. So we will do that. So back to the HR staff salaries and benefits. So we are not requesting any additional HR staff for the new fiscal year. And that also includes the 3% COLA, 3% merit, up to 3% merit. And as you can see, the total comes for the 2 staff members' salaries and benefits is $248,113. And just want to reiterate the importance of the COLA and merit. You know, with the increased cost of living, inflation, and just for morale, all those things we've heard already is really important for those things. And I'll actually be talking more about cost of living adjustments and merits at the end, and kind of what I'm seeing from municipalities across the state, just to give you a little bit more information there. But now I'll start going into specific line items and where we've made some cuts and adjustments. So the professional services line item, this includes things like trainings, speakers, coaching, and then a salary study. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But just the value of providing training, speakers, coaching to the staff is really something you can't put a number on. Yes, it's expensive, but it does pay off. Investing in our staff is so very important in their professional development, showing that we're investing in them. They really do appreciate it, and we learn so much from these things, from the trainings, from the speakers. So I would advocate to keep that in there. Can we make some cuts and adjustments there? Absolutely, we can cut it down a little bit, but I would like to keep that. As far as the salary study, I mean, the salaries, as we've seen, there are some salary issues going on as far as compression and just the competitiveness of our salaries with surrounding areas. So we've already identified there are issues there. And so I think it's very valuable to have a salary study. The only thing is if we have one, being able to implement those things is really important to make those adjustments. One of the options that I did think of is to kind of phase it in a sense. So if we did the salary study, we would put that cost in the new fiscal year budget, but those findings would not be implemented till the following fiscal year. But to kind of help with that, one option we could look at is in the new fiscal year, identifying those glaring salary issues, fixing some of those in the new fiscal year coming up, and then have the salary study and then implement the rest of those findings in the following fiscal year. So it helps phase it just a little bit, so it's not such a huge hit to that 26-27 budget. So I'll be looking for some feedback on that salary study. Like I said, I found there's a lot of value in it. We did, on the last salary study, we did make the commitment to do a salary study every other year. So just keep that in mind. It is important to have them frequently because the market, it changes so quickly. And so we want to make sure that we are staying competitive to especially the municipalities right around us because we are, as we've seen, we're losing people to those municipalities that are close by. So the employee appreciation line item. So this includes a few of our annual events that we have for staff. That includes our annual awards lunch, the staff holiday party, the employee picnic, and our years of service awards. Those years of service awards are for those that have the 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years. They receive those service awards and get recognitions at the board meetings. And so that's what this budget includes. Now, we did remove the picnic costs. The cost of food is very expensive. But, we could remove that and have it potluck style. Now, the only issue with that is if we're looking at wage freezes and if we're putting that cost back on the staff to bring the food, that could be an issue. So that's just something kind of to keep in mind with that one. We can make some cuts, but we only have a few staff events every year, and it does help with camaraderie and connection of staff, and being able to provide those things and show our appreciation to staff is really important too, so they feel valued and appreciated. So just something to think of there. Printing and binding. So this is the new things like the new hire nameplates, name tags, business cards, employment posters. We have reduced this from 5,000 to 1,500 with the removal of the new hire nameplates, name tags, business cards. But as we've kind of gone through the staffing requests, we will need to add some funds back into that if we move forward with some of the new staffing requests. So the meetings and wellness line item. So this is for lunch and learns, our health fair, biometric screening, wellness portal administration, and our quarterly breakfast with the town manager. And a couple things I want to highlight here, biometric screening and the quarterly breakfast. So we have currently removed the biometric screening cost. It's about $1,850. This is actually one of the things that can be reimbursed. We have a Cigna Health reimbursement fund where we pay for it initially, but we submit a reimbursement request. This is one of the things that is reimbursable. They've always reimbursed this biometric screening. I think it's important to have the biometric screening for staff to keep up with their health and wellness. A lot of them really enjoy having that kind of check-in amidst the health fair. Usually we kind of wrap that all into one event. And so the health fair cost in itself the vendors come and they set up their tables, and that part is not the cost. The cost is if we include the biometric screening. Again, that is a reimbursable thing from our Cigna Wellness Health Engagement Fund there. And then we did remove the quarterly breakfast with the town manager. Have been operating with kind of a quarterly breakfast where the town manager visits some of the different buildings and has a breakfast to connect with them, talk about projects, take questions. We have removed that cost. There's some ways we can have the town manager connect with staff that doesn't maybe include cost for food. So we can get creative with that. And then organization-wide notes from HR. So these kind of things affect not just the HR department. So this is not just speaking to the HR budget specifically, but to everybody. As far as a wage freeze, I just want to kind of go through the cost of some of these things. The wage freeze on promotions. Yes, a wage freeze and freeze on promotions would save money, but what are the cost of those things if we do that? We are really risking losing a lot of staff if we do this. It means we can't go by our incentives policy. This allows staff to receive increases for certifications. We have an incentives policy in place, and if we can't go by that policy, that sends a message to staff that we're not investing in them. Probationary increases. We've been operating under up to 5% for our 6-month probationary increases, as well as for when we bring on new hires, but also when people receive promotions, they fall under that probationary increase as well. And then our career development plans. So a lot of our departments have established career development plans. And that allows for a career ladder and ability for staff to have a clear path for moving up in skills and in salary. And if we are not able to give promotions, we're not able to go by our CDP. And people lose motivation, and then ultimately we lose staff if they feel stuck. So the cost of that is huge. So I just want to reiterate that. And then as far as no approval of additional staff, I know there's some staffing requests involved here with each department, and they've gone through those with you. We risk staff burnout if we're not adequately staffed. We provide a lot of services, and we want to continue to provide these wonderful services to our citizens. And just being able to adequately staff is really important so we don't have that burnout, as burnout leads to people leaving as well. And then just these things coupled with the rising health insurance cost, I mean, these have gone up, just the cost of medicine. We have had a 7.6 increase for medical and a 4.6% increase for dental. Vision remained the same, thankfully. We were on a rate lock for that. But all of these things, if we do these things and considering the rising health insurance cost, I mean, these fall under, for those with dependent coverage, those costs are increasing, and if we can't also increase their salaries to be able to pay for those things and live on their salaries, I mean, that's a cost as well. And then we've discussed the health reimbursement option for retirees. If we, to remain competitive, it would be nice to keep that in. I think we went over the kind of cost of that. We took it out, but it was $29,400. So that's something to strongly consider keeping as well, just from a competitive standpoint with retirement insurance with other area municipalities. And then just another, thing to think about is, current staff scared of what the reality is and what that means in the future and what it looks like. And so we already have staff, as they've talked about, that have already left. And, the fear is that we're going to continue losing our wonderful staff. And so, that's just not something we want to do. We have so much, look at all the faces here. We have so many strong staff members, and I would hate to see some of these faces not be here anymore, including who's not here on staff. And so I think it's the reality of the situation. I get it. The cost of living is so expensive, and taxpayers are concerned about their tax rate is, and you have a duty to that as well. But if we can't keep our staff, that's also a cost to the community. We want to continue that level of service that they're used to getting, and if we lose staff, that may go as well. So, just something to consider there. And then I will say I wanted to talk a little bit about cost of living adjustments and merit raises. I have been kind of monitoring what on the HR listserv, a lot of the municipalities are discussing their estimated COLAs and merits that they're going to be giving. On average, I'm seeing a lot of proposing, and again, their budgets haven't passed yet, but they're proposing 3 to 5% COLAs. I'm seeing a lot of that, and then an average of about 3% merit raises. So just think about that. If they're doing this and we aren't, that's a big hit to our ability to attract and retain staff, and ultimately puts us more behind on salaries compared to other places. And so with that, organization notes, ultimately looking for feedback you can provide on the HR budget specifically, but also the big some of those organization-wide notes that I discussed. The salary study is a big one, the inclusion of that, as well as some of those salary adjustments that maybe we can go ahead and make in that phased approach, so looking for feedback and your thoughts on that. And then as also looking at those COLAs and merits and those new staffing requests. So those are a lot of the big ticket items that'll be up for discussion. So just want to open up any feedback or questions that you may have.
One of the questions I had was the idea of the salary study. Mm-hmm. And I guess the question regarding the salary study is, do we feel that we currently have any blind spots? Or are we not already currently aware of where the gaps are in terms of pay? All the way down to the individual level. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like we are. Kind of what I talked about with the kind of glaring spots that we clearly see there's an issue here. We are not remaining competitive with Monroe and Stallings and area, the county. Those we can see. Now, I do have the league release their salary study that they do annually, so I can pull from that, and it breaks it down by population and then categorizes those municipalities that fall under that population and see where they are in ranges. Sometimes the trick of it is when you're doing a salary study and comparing yourself to other, nearby places, they're reporting their ranges, but they're not necessarily reporting their starting pay. And so that's where there can be a discrepancy. And it's like, oh, wow, we are behind because it's just the way it's structured. It can be a little difficult. But I think the salary study from the league will help kind of give us a good idea where we are. There are positions where we are okay, and then there are some positions where we're far behind. And I think those are apparent, and those could be some areas where we can go ahead and make some pretty immediate changes if allowed. And the idea there being that we don't necessarily need a study, I think, this year for the 25-26 budget. Mm-hmm. I think it's obvious we don't really need a study to tell us a lot of what we already know. Mm-hmm. One of the requests, and I think this is probably a bigger one than just HR, is getting a consolidation of the increase to basically the 401k contribution, the NC retirement, medical and life, and then workers' comp. Those are line items that are present in everybody's budget, and I know all of them have gone up, double-digit percentages. And I think getting a picture of how much that has gone up overall and how it affects the overall budget, I think is going to be something that it will be good to help clarify to the folks why some of the decisions are being made that will be made soon.
Sure, absolutely. We can pull some of those stats for you. It'd be helpful.
And I think it'll be part of the summary at the tail end of this to kind of help explain where we're at and the why. Others?
I actually had a question for Mr. Hicks on this. You've worked in a lot of different places. Have you seen salary studies done in a different way that might be fill in the gaps a little bit more? Because I think our last salary study missed some key findings. And so if we're going to pay for a service, I'd like not to miss key findings that we did miss. So do you have any suggestions? Have you seen anything different?
I think they're all pretty standard. What I'd hate to see you do is do a salary study, find out how bad you're off, and then not having money to fix it.
To do it.
I think we know where our biggest problems area, Todd's lower paid people, Dena's lower paid people. PD, I think we can do that without doing a salary study, and I think that $35,000 could be better used somewhere else.
Yeah,
That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, I really question the value of the salary study because we had one presented to us last year and it did identify some people who were significantly underpaid, and that was good, but it was only a very small number of people. Out of curiosity, I took everybody else who didn't get a bump and compared the total with what the study said was the market rate. And according to this study, and I'm questioning this, according to the study, all of our employees are getting 14.5% more than market rate. And there was even one department that was 23% more than market rate. So we do this salary study, which seems to say that our employees are well paid, but then now we're being told that there's problems. So maybe we should take the salary study money and put it into salaries.
That's an option, is it, instead of putting that towards the salary studies, being able to fix some of those where we're off and adjusting some of those issues. I mean, salary studies, like I said, they're a little tricky based on how salaries are reported to them. And it changes so quickly. But all we can go of is what we currently know, where we are and where other local municipalities that are close by, where they are. And we can pretty easily identify where that shortfall is. And so, yes, that is an option, is us identifying those areas where we know we're behind and being able to implement some of those changes.
I agree with what's been said about the salary study. So I agree with what's been said down here. I've reached a level of frustration, though, today. Because, 3 years ago, we won one of the best places to work in the Charlotte area, and now we're nitpicking on cutting $1,000 breakfast with the town manager, cutting picnics for our employees. I mean, yes, we are not a corporation, but we are an employer, and we have staff members who have families and have to live, and they work hard. And, I mean, my company buys us lunch every Thursday, our entire company, thousands of people, every Thursday. And it's because they are showing appreciation towards their employees. I cannot imagine that we are talking about such little nitpicky stuff right now. I don't want to cut any of those things you've talked about. Our employees need all of that to show our appreciation for them. And That's my input on it.
Well, I agree with you. $3,000 for a staff appreciation is not even a drop in the bucket. It's not, so that's not really what it's about. It's about looking at bigger ticket items that perhaps we can scale down where it's not necessary, like a salary study. Perhaps department heads can call around and really find out, hey, what is your starting salary? What is a police officer getting? I mean, in the local area and not North Carolina wide, because what's happening in Boone doesn't necessarily affect what's happening here. It would be probably more practical to find out what, Monroe's paying, what Stallings is paying, and then average it out that way.
Yeah, their most competitive places are what's close by.
Correct.
Because, you're less likely to have someone move really far away and uproot their families but they will for the town over. They'll leave if we're way off on salary. So that's a good point.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and like you were talking about with the attrition, that's a pretty strong indicator that something needs to change, right?
Right.
So we don't really need a salary study to tell us that that's going on.
Correct.
No, I'll just echo Commissioner Westlake's concern too, because I do think it's the little things that tend to make the difference in terms of a workplace environment. I've worked at a company that's, it's gone both ends of the pendulum. We got lots of money, yippee. We don't have any money. Nobody's going anywhere and don't buy nothing. So I've seen it, and I've felt it firsthand. So I would certainly hate to see us scrimp and save a few thousand here, a couple thousand there for an employee appreciation lunch, for a breakfast with the town manager, because things like that, it's the camaraderie and it's the communication that I've seen in my own professional work, that it makes the difference in terms of a nice place to work and kind of a grind of a place to work. So I would hate to see us sort of, how does the saying go? It's just like you pinch a penny to lose a pound, that kind of thing. Yeah, penny wise, pound foolish. That's the one. So yeah, because I think those appreciation things go a long way in letting folks know that it's a nice place. Please stay. And I'll just echo an agreement that, yeah, we need to be comparing Monroe, the county, Stallings, and those areas, Mint Hill and whatnot, because, yeah, I get the idea, and Chief Dex's presentation yesterday, just the idea that I don't have to change my home address and I can get a 10% raise, sign me up. I mean, so we definitely don't want that to happen, and seeing that we're in this position is frustrating. So we do need to get out of it, and we need to figure out how to get out of it. So thank you. All right, anything else for HR? On to the next one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all need a wiggle bag?
Anybody need a recess? Everybody good? All right, we're powering through. Yeah, I noticed that too. There's 3 of them. Watch out.
This is team effort. Team effort. Okay, so at our last BOC meeting, a couple things got tabled, and y'all wanted to talk about them tonight. So we're going to bring that up right now and talk about a few things. But I wanted to start off with kind of overarching kind of a statement. I've been thinking really hard about this, and after hearing all my teammates and hearing their concerns, my own team having their concerns, this is real for us. And we want to be your team. We want to be your teammates. So I just want to bring that out there. Finding balance. What makes Waxhaw unique? The look and feel, having clean streets with one of my other teammates, having safe streets with another teammate, having safe and clean parks, facilities, trails, and events and programmings. It takes all of Waxhaw to make this happen, to accomplish this mission. A few years ago, the world shut down. A couple of your team departments were here. Park and Rec was one of those teams. When you could not go anywhere, you came to us. We were the ones that helped with your physical and mental balance. I want to make sure that we are being seen as an essential part of that balance. Finding that balance in our community feel is behind why you're here, why you moved here. What we're going to be asking tonight is basically your feedback. Let's have a conversation and to figure out what that balance is. Because you have 100% teammates ready to help you find that balance. All right, let's go into our master plan. So at our last BOC meeting, I was requested to table the master plan and the learning center. So y'all would get a better understanding of kind of what we're doing tonight. And you've now seen all of the departments, Park and Rec's last. And basically to go over what your thoughts and feels on how the master plan looks, if there's some questions that you might have on, I know there's some property questions out there. So I'm here, since we went through that presentation, we didn't go through the Learning Center presentation. I'm gonna start you off with some questions. Is there something particular, because at your spot, you actually have the master plan, a written copy, and then I gave you last time the actual map that you have up on your screen. And it tells you all those wonderful places that we do have recreation and places are recreational deserts, that we're always looking for those opportunities. So let's start off with, was there any specific questions that y'all had about the master plan? Is there anything that you wish for us to take off or adjust?
Yeah, I haven't had time to actually digest any of this, so
Okay.
that's kind of a hard
Would you like
question.
me to skim through it to give us a refresher?
But this is the master plan moving forward,
So
right?
what
It's not,
what happened in 19?
right.
We had our first strategic master plan, and that basically, I'm a big checklister to understand where our current parks stand and what the opportunities, what the citizens were requesting for the next stage of Park and Rec. At that plan, we were able to accomplish a lot of those infrastructure issues, safety issues, deferred maintenance issues that we've had. And so what this update does is only basically updating each park where they stand now. So for example, Nesbitt, when I came on board, it did not have restrooms. That's really challenging for an athletic park, not to have restrooms. It had porta potties everywhere. So that was a huge undertaking to get restrooms at Nesbitt Park. It was not ADA compliant. Now it is. It had safety issues all and up and down that park. And now the safety issues are dealt with. The same with Barnes, with the skate park, with Town Creek, with our trails. So all those listing in that 19 plan they either got updated, like we've checked it off, but there were basically about 5 to 10 things under it. I just moved them up on the list. Or when we got citizen input about, because our environment has changed since 19, of who wants what, like pickleball, that's something people want now. If we have that opportunity in the future to have courts, then we'll take that into consideration. This plan is just an update, so it is nothing new other than we added Downtown Park and we added the rec barn. Those are new facilities. We also have it broken out where we have open facilities or active facilities, the transition facilities, which we're going to talk about the Learning Center. That is a transition facility. We've already put funding towards it. We had to decide if we're going to keep putting funding towards it. The trails that we have grants out for, one, we already have the grant back, getting direction on that. We're hoping to get the other trail grant soon for that bridge, things like that. Those are the transition. Then we have non-active parkland, such as our Kensington Triangle area. That's between Curitan and, help me out, team. No. On Kensington. Quellen. And so there's a triangle piece there that we have identified that could be a possibly dog park, definitely a trailhead for the Spine Sunny's Way. And the Waxhaw Marvin property just up the road, 34. So those are non-active. So it just identifies what those are, which on the 13th, we're having, before your BOC meeting, we're having a public input meeting about that. So that's what this update is to basically get us current on what we've done, what we've accomplished, and then the other things that needs to be accomplished for those facilities. That helps us with future grant applications, so we're just current.
Okay, I'm going to start.
Okay, I'm ready for you, Ms. Tracy.
So we have acquired some property in the past that probably should have never happened. And what bothers me is that we're putting them into a park master plan because we're having to come up with a way to use land that we purchased in the past that really had no plan. I'm going to say a couple things. The 34 acres was originally purchased because a former commissioner had it in her mind that we were going to have an equestrian center and be like the town of Tryon, and without having any idea how we were going to pay for that. And so it was never purchased as a park. And I know that the surrounding property owners want it to be a park, but I wonder if it had been what it was originally intended to be, if they would have been happy having all that traffic for an equestrian center. And now we are having to come up with a way to use this land simply because we've purchased it. And I'm of the opinion that, I don't see any time in the near future that we would be doing anything with that property, and nor that we really need any parkland in that area of town. And when we're sitting here talking about cutting $1,000 town manager breakfast, and we're sitting on a, I don't know how much it's worth, $4 million property, or, do you know? Oh, $10 million. Excuse me, I was way off. This is insane. It's totally insane. And then, and I know there's even, and I don't know much about the Wasaki property. What does that look like?
So it's a small triangle piece that's at the back of the, and that's a grandfathered piece of property that the town owns. It's one of those, here you go.
Yeah, it was a former planning board chair's piece of property, is what it was. I mean, keeping it real for everybody that doesn't know. We shouldn't have bought that property. Unless we're going to have, I mean, I think it's nice to have a little pocket park there. That would be nice if we have plans to do that. But how, I mean, is that going to really benefit the entire town, or is it just benefiting that neighborhood? So, I mean, we just need to keep it real here. I mean, do we want to hang on to land just because it's been purchased in the past? Or if we don't have a plan for it, let's get rid of it and use that money for something else. And so I have a problem having it being called reserved parkland in a park master plan when we have no plan for that. So I'd like any input from anyone else.
I don't think there's anything wrong with holding on to some land. I mean, doesn't have to have something done with it immediately necessarily, or even have a plan. You know, it's an asset that we'll only appreciate with time.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, my concern is, you know, there's not a lot of land left in Waxhaw. And, you know, my research has shown, and research from one of an invited guest made a proposal and made a presentation that said that residential growth does not pay for itself. So if we sell that land to a high-density developer, which is most likely what will happen, the traffic will increase, we'll have to hire more people, we have to hire more police, and so we're working against the grain when we do that. So I think we have to be cautious when we do that. And, you know, as my mother used to say, robbing Peter to pay Paul isn't a really great idea. So let's try to be conservative with our estimates and our budgets from here on in, and not be trigger happy and sell land that we can't replace. That is not a resource that we can get back. So I'd just like to be careful in making those decisions.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that's been going around is to utilize that park as an indoor space. I hear frequent complaints, for instance, that there's no gymnastics, there's no place to play volleyball. So there is a need for indoor recreational facilities as well. The rec barn is great, but the rec barn doesn't even have a basketball court. So there's the possibility that land could be developed for an indoor recreational facility. That's definitely one reason I think it's worth keeping at this point. We do have other assets, I agree. The Wasaki land is pretty small. And then I think we have some of our other facilities that were recently vacated with the opening of the town park, or not the town park, but town hall. And some of those facilities, we can start thinking more near term about liquidating those. But that particular piece of land, it would not be top on my list of things to sell right away. It would be nice to save it as long as we could.
So with your suggestion for an indoor recreational facility, we did receive an email or a letter from someone right down Waxhaw Marvin Road who is also planning to build some form of indoor recreational facility. I think that they had asked the town for information or working together or, you know, getting together with that. Now, I'm not commenting about the 34 acres one way or the other. I have some of my neighbors who are here tonight. I live right next door, so I might have to recuse myself regarding whatever you decide regarding that property. However, I will say it is good to have property and keep land and stuff, but it's also good to have our employees and keep them as well, and keep them paid in the way that they need to be paid. I understand that we need to be conservative in moving forward with how we plan our budget, but I think that we need to be mindful that the town has to be run. And as many people have said before here on the dais, they do have jobs. They can't do the jobs of the employees here because you're not well equipped to do those, but the people you see out here will not be here, and you still will have your land.
I just don't think that selling land, though, is a sustainable way to balance a budget. You know, maybe it plugs a hole temporarily, but we really need to have long-term planning. You know, as I said yesterday, we can't just lurch from year to year without knowing the long-term implications of our decisions.
Can I rephrase it in a different way? So, for example, behind Harris Teeter, we, back in the day, had a partnership with another nonprofit. And that partnership did not go in for remission because neither parties had the funding to make that happen. That property changed over to a different department. It no longer was then considered park property. So with the listing that I have on the park properties, would y'all like to just put that under town properties so it does not conflict with the park master plan?
I mean, in the absence of any specific plans, I think that makes sense to just list it as town assets or town properties. Again, it'd be nice to come up with a plan for these, especially the Kensington Prescott one and then the 34 acres. But, you know, short of actually investing the time and the money into getting those plans, I think we just leave it in the sort of town assets column.
Okay, so
Can I just ask one more quick question? It just came to mind. With regard to an indoor facility or any other type of facility that may be built on any of the properties that we do have, we're looking at how do we pay our employees, how do we keep our lights on, how do we keep our streets fixed? How are we going to pay for that?
No, I agree. That question persists and it will continue to persist. But the how you're going to pay for it becomes moot if you don't have a place to put it in the first place, which is why it would be nice to hold on to it until we can maybe come up with a method of payment.
Right, because we're talking long-term and thinking long-term in our planning process, as the Commissioner down from me just stated. I mean, I'm thinking long-term in the process, even though I may not be here long-term in the process, but if I am here long-term in the process, I just want to know how we're going to pay for it.
Yeah, no, there's any number of grant possibilities. I mean, this building was built with a loan. There's definitely public-private partnerships that can be utilized. There's a variety of mechanisms. It's just going to take time to put that together. And I think once we come up with a solution, it would be nice to have a place to put it.
Okay, just
But no,
curious.
I think that's a perfectly fair question. I think it's a perfectly fair question.
So you mentioned, besides the 34 acres, the Kensington property behind Harris Teeter.
So, yes, ma'am. That is actually our compost facility now.
Right.
And so our public services utilize that, which actually the Army Corps is utilizing it right now to help out with the cleanup. So that property is dedicated for that service.
Right.
When you're talking, the other on Kensington, it's the triangle piece that's right here. Mm-hmm. That is sandwiched in between Curitan and Quellen, and that actually has like a plan
For the dog park,
with
right?
the Sonny's Way. That basically there's a spine trail that takes you all the way from Marvin all the way downtown.
Where was like a dog, there was supposed to be
And the
like
dog park was
park.
going to be was slated to be there. That was a lot of our citizens' request to have a dog park on the top end of town because of the walkability of that. And then so that one kind of has a quasi plan to it because of the trail. The Wasaiki, we don't have a plan for that, and we would have to have a proper master plan done for 34. Those are the only like land.
Yeah,
for under
and so
Park
what
Rec.
I think about, and we've talked about this before, that we have all this parkland on that side of town, but we have nothing on the other side of town. And so, and then if we're talking about doing more with the Kensington property, we've mentioned here the nonprofit that's wanting to do some type of community center. all that's on Waxhaw Marvin Road. There's still nothing on the other side. And so I'm going to say, even if we had the money to develop the 34 acres, to me, that would be a waste when we have nothing on the other side of town.
That's the reason why the map is so telling on like our recreational deserts. And I've talked to y'all about that before. And just like the downtown park, the land came available in 12, and that was a strategic buy, which is awesome. And now we have a beautiful downtown park. The rec barn came available, and we were able to get appropriation funding to pay for it. Bonus, right? That's a miracle. So we are building that, but again, it takes time, and I fully understand that. But I need direction on how do you want me to proceed with this plan to help you get grant funding for those future projects. So this plan is just an update, but again, if there's something in here that y'all are not 100% on, that's the feedback that I need to help make sure you're 100%. Because again, this is a teammate. I need your help with this.
Well, I like your idea of just listing some of that property as town assets. Is the meeting place included in?
So right now, the meeting place is considered a transition area, and so is the McDonald House. The meeting place and the McDonald House, those two entities were going to combine into the Learning Center. That's our next discussion. If whatever y'all's wishes about the Learning Center, then we have to rethink what happens at those two locations. This then involves other departments because of where we're spread out at. So we have to be strategic about this, and we have to be mindful of other teammates. Okay?
There are some parts of this that perhaps we should defer consideration of. I haven't, as the mayor said, he hasn't really absorbed this yet, and I haven't either. I've been so focused on the budget. Are there specific budget-related questions we should answer for you?
So, yes, sir. The budget-related questions would be for our next talk about the Learning Center, but then, so that's because those two entities combined into this one center, right? So if that's something that we're going to be either put on hold, or if we're not doing it, or we are doing it, so we can just get started, would y'all like to kind of move into that direction and then come back to this?
Wasn't there a cost for the master plan that you were looking for matching funds or some type of funds?
So in my budget talk, I do have one of my priorities would be the master plan for Barnes and the skate park, because of the age and how much love it's been getting and has been getting, and it has a lot of deferred maintenance on those two areas. So that would be the master plan for that.
What was that $500,000 cost that you were telling us about at the last meeting?
500.
There was a $500,000 cost for the shades. Oh,
The shades, yes. So the part of grant. So
Okay.
we're not. Y'all decided we're going to wait until next year to go for the part of grant, which is totally cool, and that's listed in that we're going to wait until next year to do that.
Got that. Okay, I knew it was 500 for something.
Yes, ma'am.
So on the meeting place, you said that because that's reserved all the time, and so you're saying
ma'am.
that would then transition to the Learning Center. So then we could sell the meeting place.
If you so
Because there would be
choose to.
no other plan really for that space, right? No. Do we know how much that is worth?
I can look that up for you.
I didn't know if Ashley knew, because Ashley has it.
Thank you, Miss Ashley.
$111,000. $111,000. Ooh, sorry, I lied to you. That's the park. It's $120,400.
Has there been any discussion to consolidate the activities going on at the McDonald House and the meeting place into the town campus, and then liquidate both properties?
Here?
Correct.
We don't have the room here.
We don't?
Is it?
I think we do have the room here.
Okay.
I'm just curious if that's something that's been considered.
No, sir?
I think that the McDonald House was kept the McDonald House because it is right in the heart of downtown, which is where the Business Development Office operates out of, and that they also work with downtown businesses, and they would be meeting down there, and the events are down there. So that's why, if I'm not mistaken, Ashley, am I correct? Is that why we kept the McDonald House with you in it there, so that you're right in the heart of downtown with everyone that you're working with?
Yeah, we put the business development department there. One, since we do downtown Main Street work, so we were easily accessible. We weren't before at the old town hall, and we wouldn't be as accessible here. We do share that space with Parks and Rec on their programs right now. So they do senior coffee there, as well as cooking programs in that space.
Just as a general thing on my mind, if there's any big ticket items that can be deferred without causing longer term costs or consequences, I would be in favor of deferring them because of the grim state of our budget.
Okay. So would y'all like me to transition into the Learning Center presentation?
Yeah, because I would rather defer things that we don't necessarily need and give those to the employees immediately and give them the raises and things that they need, rather than match a grant if we don't have to, if it's not going to hurt us in the long term with our standing and that sort of thing.
Okay. Nick, can you pull up the Learning Center project, please? Okay. So the Learning Center, we had on our last BOC meeting, and y'all asked to defer to tonight. Again, always going back to our vision and mission, and you have a laminated copy at your spot, so you can see it at your leisure. The Learning Center timeline, we talked about this in 23 retreat. And this became one of your top priorities. And then that set me on a mission to make it happen for you. Then we talked about it again at last retreat. And then it gave you a heads up on costs or not the estimated cost that we had in 23. And give you a heads up that that is something that when we do the bidding process, that we need to be mindful of. Well, we got back the bidding. Had to go through a couple hoops about that because our two lowest bidders did not fill out their paperwork properly, and we had to get all that taken care of. The third lowest responsible bidder got all of their paperwork done, and they were set to go, and then was able to get that ready for last meeting. The Learning Center would be taking the place of the McDonald House and the meeting place, but then it also takes the place of our vacant of the library that was there. So that is most of the services socially that the library was doing we would have there. So that would be able to fax things for citizens, get on Wi-Fi in the computer lab and have actually assistants on that, help out with the resumes, help out with job searches. So it's just another resource for citizens in an area that cannot utilize the new library because they can't reach it. And or there's a cost of getting there, the reason why they can't reach it. So all those things were considered as we went on that journey to get the Learning Center. So in the beginning, we had a projected cost. As y'all know, construction, you wait 5 minutes and it changes. Going almost 2.5 years, it changed a lot. And the expectations of trying to do a renovation that has a lot of deferred maintenance, over 25 years of deferred maintenance, to get that cost under $1 million. So what we got very creative of trying to pay for a lot of things before we went into the budget of the 5 that we already had allotted for. And we use our ARP funds to pay for the design and the contract cost, all the furniture, a lot of the soft costs with that is within the ARP funds. And then we've already made that investment a little less than $200,000 into this facility. The beginning request was to have a facility that, again, takes the place of the meeting place in the McDonald House. The meeting places are one of our highest rented, almost 7 days a week. At least one rental a day that serves the community. And this is one of our more reasonable cost points for rentals because of it's a small little room with a restroom and a little kitchenette. But it serves the needs of a lot of our church groups, our nonprofit groups, and our birthdays, because it's right beside the park, Barnes Park. Again, a lot of our meetings happen here. And we also have a lot of our committee meetings here as well. So after all the input on doing the building, we got the lowest responsible bidder is $958. I know that's a lot. A lot of the issues is ADA. Just the driveway and the parking alone is a huge portion of this budget. The restrooms are not ADA. The facility itself has outdated AC and air and electric. So this is just to get the building like up to standards, up to our building code. We can do some cost savings on storage that we had in the back. I'll go through that. But there's a couple things that are still outstanding. Some of the computer monitors we still need to get. And then like landscaping, the sign to go outside, we didn't have that coverage yet. So knowing that we are mindful of the budget, in the green boxes are things just have to open the building. That's our ingress and egress. They did not have the proper back of house to get out for safety. You're closed in. Again, that ADA code, the restrooms, the upgrade to the electric. Things that we can choose not to do, the dividing wall, the kitchen, the full-size kitchen, just have like a little kitchenette, and then the quiet room for studying or doing a job interview, and then the storage on the outside. Those are the highlights that the team and I looked at that could be off, but that's not going to get you, it might 100,000. We would have to go back out to bid to give you the proper numbers, and then see what we get. So
I can't promise you that it's going to go down $300,000, as much as I wish I could tell you. But that's the realization of it.
Is there any reason this project can't be funded with a loan?
I don't know that question. That would be can this be funded with a loan, Ms. Rosie?
I mean, the $1 million bill right off the bat's kind of hard to swallow, obviously, but maybe 50 to 100,000 a year would certainly be a lot easier and spread the pain out. I mean, we've talked about this a lot over the last couple of years, and we've talked a lot about the need and the desire to have this type of facility in this location of town. And it definitely sounds like something we really want to do as a high priority. And I'm just wondering if a loan wouldn't be more suitable for something like this, since it is such a big bite.
Okay, so I would have to look into what we would need to do to apply for a loan. I can certainly speak with the bankers, and then there's the rulings with the LGC that we'd have to make sure that they approve that for us with our, by looking at our budget and our financial statements. I mean, we're in good standing, but I'm not sure how quickly that information would be available.
That's kind of my other thing is if we go
Yeah.
down the loan path, does that sort of reset a lot of the clock that's already passed in getting this? Is that like a 3-month thing or a 6-month thing?
Like a short-term loan. I absolutely have contacts where
Yeah.
I can look into that. So I can take care of looking into that with it as
Yeah.
quickly as I can.
To give you an update, we did get an email today from Gaius, the lowest responsible bidder, and they can only keep the numbers that we are at for April, which is today. And they would not be able, because we requested to the end of May when we reached out to them, and they would not be able to do that. We talked yesterday about the tariff taxes and everything, and not knowing what that's going to look like. To help, they wouldn't be able to keep that bid the same. So we'd have to go back to bid regardless.
Because wasn't there also sort of an outdoor space that we were looking at developing with this as well? That
Yes,
wasn't
sir.
included in any of this?
So yes,
at this
sir.
point?
This is that area right here. So the outdoor storage, and we have like little theater seating right here, so you can do an outdoor classroom. That's again would meet a lot of needs, but meeting the need that our citizens need inside, I was rather risking that than this, because they need this.
No, I'm not proposing one over the other.
Okay.
I'm making the point of a reason to get a loan is B, because A, we're taking a long time to decide, and that's just only adding to the cost, as we know with inflation. And it seems we have other ideas beyond this plan, beyond this price tag, that again could be facilitated with a loan. And I'm just throwing it out there as a way of potentially just getting this project done at a price the town could potentially afford on an annual basis.
Have we received the funds for the ARPA funds?
Yes, so we've gotten them all, and everything has already been allocated, and we have to have it actually spent out.
Right.
So those, the list that I have, so we are in the process, because we have to get that money out, so we're just keeping this in storage with, tried to apply the kitchen stuff. We can't apply it anywhere, but the computer lab, to maybe put one at the rec barn in our homework room, and then just trying to figure out how to utilize them for our citizens. Again, trying to figure out a way to help them.
You know I'm a big supporter of this. I was one of the champions of this, so I'm determined to find a way to make this happen.
It's a great suggestion about the possible loan. So there is costs later on. There's staffing costs. In our budget talks, we'll talk about that it was reduced to part-times to help out with the budget as well. And then, thank you. And I guess, the regular power and water and stuff like that. And the groundskeep. It's not that much grounds on the outside, just, we gotta make sure it look pretty.
So can I just butt in for just a second on the Learning Center? We currently have in this year's budget $500,000 assigned in the CIP for the Learning Center. So what we are looking for, an additional cost, is about another $500,000. So it's not the whole $1,098,000 or whatever it is that she had. It's just so that you know.
True statement.
It's the cost the additional cost for funding that we're looking for is not as bleak as it seems.
But the money for the CIP comes out of revenue, right?
Sorry, I have a hard.
Can you say that one more time, Mr. Richard? She didn't hear you.
She was saying about it coming, half of it coming out of the CIP, but that's still.
So that money, it comes out of revenue. I mean, it's already in the budget this fiscal year, that $500,000. So we have the funds budgeted and set aside. So it comes through the operating costs that we've been receiving, the ad valorem taxes and the sales tax and everything we've been receiving during the course of the year. So the additional funds is what we're looking at how to fund.
And what is that total of the additional funds?
It would be closer to another
Looks like
500,000.
458,900.
Okay, so we sell the meeting place, that's 125,000. Let's start adding up here. I mean, I'm open to hearing suggestions down here.
I just wanted to say that IT also has some surplus that we've been able to use or keep on our shelves that will contribute to some of those numbers. Not a lot, but we looked out for them as well and try to get some of the materials to reduce our cost.
We did get some figures from Mr. Hicks about extra fund balance, and we might be able, if we're allowed to do that, we can maybe do a little bit of that. My concern then becomes staffing. Is there a way then you can creatively staff it so that we're not adding more staff?
So right now, when we go into the next presentation, we have the only staffing that we actually are asking for is 3 part-time. Making you aware of what was in the beginning, what the request was, right? So, and this is all on demand. If we have 2 part-time staff in the current budget for the Learning Center for when it's open. If we're on this timeline, we probably won't be open until maybe May or June of next year, maybe. So it might not even be in this budget. It might be in the next budget. But that also there's consequences of it's just going to be open mainly. I think we have it Monday through Thursday, so we can have Saturday hours, 8 to 5. That takes a lot of our night meetings out, unless we keep the meeting place open. So you just have, there's a lot of check and balances, right? And we're doing our best to meet the citizens' needs, but I'm looking out for my teammates as well. And I'm not just talking about Park and Rec teammates, I'm talking about my whole team. So we make sure that we can do this because I think it is a need for our community. But again, it's the balance.
We've talked about in the past 2 possible volunteers from the high school that are looking for volunteer hours. Could we look into having a schedule to get, the those teenagers, and they know their tech, so.
I think that would help out with the amount of people coming in, but we would need a staff member, like an adult, there monitoring. So I don't think we can get away with that portion of it, but definitely helping out if we need additional help, those volunteer opportunities, yes, ma'am.
I know for a fact the high school kids, National Honor Society, Beta Club, and the film class at Cuthbertson High School is amazing. We have an intern now. Mr. Colbrenner is great, and he teaches them Adobe. They can do everything.
No.
Plus TikToks, Instagrams, all at the same time.
All the things.
So, I think that's a way to do it so that we're keeping our costs down because, again, part-timers is a great way to work this because it is the cheaper way to go.
And that's what we're proposing in the budget is those 2 part-timers. Because we utilize all of our wonderful teens for events and programs already, so we are very mindful of those as well.
I just have a question. Did I hear you say that question to Mr. Hicks about, if we had any fund balance available to use for this project and possibly using the fund balance for this? Was that?
Yeah, I'm curious if that's allowed, if it's something that can be even done. I don't know. Not that it's a great idea to, work a budget using fund balance, but aside from our reserve where we're in good standing and all of that, there's additional funds that can be used. I think that's what the email said, correct?
Yeah, I think you've got additional fund balance over and above what's required for your fund balance policy. Your policy says you have to have at least 40% of the next year's expenditure.
Right, but we've been
So if
keeping
you
a
take
little
all that
more.
out, if you take out what has to be reserved by state statute, you still have about $6 million in that fund that you could use to supplement this project.
To supplement the project,
Yes,
this project.
yes, to cover the additional costs that she's talking about here.
Okay.
Because that would be 400,000.
It's
9
about
million.
500,000.
500, let's say 500,000. And that would be a way to fund it, that area. When the library closed, they were very upset about that. And I know kids need a place to go after school. I'm acutely aware of that. And getting them to a place like that keeps them from getting in trouble in other places. So if we're going to use fund balance, I think that would be a worthy cause for it. Not haphazardly using it.
Is the fund balance something that we can tap into and then backfill with a loan? Going back to the borrowing idea again, is that something that you could do?
Enough where I wouldn't worry about, putting it back by, along with the 500,000 you've already got, and you take $500,000 out of fund balance. You've got the construction costs covered.
Yeah, but not putting it back. But if we're thinking long-term, and even like we say, we have other things that are coming up, and we want to be prepared for that on top of everything else that we're looking at in our budget with staff, with salaries, with everything else, you start dipping into fund balance and taking money out for this project, then why aren't we taking fund balance out for a street sweeper or another project? And then you start using the fund balance and you don't have any balance with funds.
That's why I'm suggesting we backfill.
But I'm also not suggesting that we dip into fund balance for anything else other than anything that we're absolutely required to do, because I'm not really sure where we're getting $500,000. And giving raises, the raises are important, COLA raises, merit raises, those are absolutely important. The police department is at a detriment, not having enough staff and not being able to get staff. It becomes, I know citizens have a list of things that they want, but I would question that if there was a price tag attached, because nobody really knows what a street light costs. Nobody knows what it takes to put a dog park together. People think, you just have some grass and you fence it in and you have a dog park. They don't think of the liability and the insurance that goes with that. So yes, people want a lot of things, but I don't know that they're willing to pay for it in their taxes. And if they knew the cost of that, that might shift. And then their priorities might be different. So this, I think, is, we can agree that most people that need it over there and want it. And that would be a worthy cause. That's my humble opinion.
I don't think anyone's suggesting to run fund balance down to nothing. We're talking about what we have beyond the required amount, which is what, 40% of operating costs for the year? So if we have some over, then I guess that's extra money we could safely allocate towards something.
Fund balance, I've always recommended that you use it for a single one-time expenditure. Don't balance your budget with it.
Again, I will just say, as long as I've been here, we have appropriated a certain amount of fund balance to spend into the budget every year as part of the incoming budget, just to cover any shortfall for projects or CIPs, anything that's out there. We can look at the history. You can see it will show appropriated fund balance in the listing, and we've approved that. We also, during, at the end of the year, just to cover any budget overages, to make sure that everything is secure and in balance, we have used appropriated fund balance to cover the costs of town operations and still maintain a healthy fund balance for projects and emergencies. So there is a spendable amount that we have available above and beyond what the 40% of the operating budget for the upcoming year will be. So we can certainly use some of that funds to cover what we need to cover.
The budget that ends June 30th, you budgeted, I think, $640,000 of your fund balance. As you get to the end of the year, hopefully you'll have more revenues. Your expenditures won't be as much as you thought they were. So the hope is that you don't spend that. This budget is proposed using zero fund balance.
So
You said this budget proposes zero fund balance? Because on page 11, the potential cost savings recommends a pull from fund balance of $671,000. Or maybe I misread that.
I wouldn't recommend using fund balance to cover that.
No, I agree, because
Yeah,
that
I
would
think if you
conflict what
said-
you just said, where
Yeah.
you shouldn't use fund balance to balance a budget, but that's exactly what page 11 suggests.
The actual budget doesn't include fund balance. That's just one option. I think if there is a $600,000 shortfall, your tax rate ought to cover that and not use fund balance to do it.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
What was fund balance, recently? Because I seem to remember last year that we were at almost 100% of operating costs, and now we're down to 40%. It's like feast or famine around here.
I think as of June 30th, your last audit, you were at about $17 million. If you adopt this budget, you're probably somewhere in the range of about $25 million. So you're probably at 70 to 80% of your total operating cost.
Is that adopting the budget at what's projected here with the 0.262%? Is that?
If you do the 0.262, you're $600,000 short when you give no raises, you don't do anything. So I'm thinking you need to be in the 30, 31, 32 cent range, and you can cover those
So you're
costs in
saying-
without using fund balance.
So you're saying adopt a budget that's
covers
higher
that
than
shortfall.
what the
Yes.
262 is,
Right.
not at the 262.
No, I don't think you can make it at .26. So you can't cut, $700,000 out of this budget when you're not giving raises and you got people that are falling
that was
behind
my
already.
question, to understand that, okay.
So you're looking for a motion to award the contract to the Learning Center. And just to clarify, that proposal is for the $958,900, $500 of which is already covered.
Yes, sir.
So you're basically looking for $458,900 from the 25-26 budget.
Yes, sir.
Well, actually, it would come out of the 24 to 25, because you got to cover it prior to June 30th. So she would bring you a budget amendment at your next meeting to actually take it out of the fund balance.
Okay. So I will officially request a motion to award the contract for the Waxhaw Learning Center to Gaius Construction in the amount of $958,900 and authorize the interim town manager to execute said contract.
Just before we vote on that, I'm just a little fuzzy about something, because we've been sitting here for the past 4 days now talking about the price of computers and software licenses, and now the entire town staff is concerned because the potential cost savings recommended by the interim town manager on line 1 recommends wage freezes and then retirement savings, cutting all new positions. I mean, that's $1.8 million right there.
And I think just to clarify too, that it sounds like
So
this
I'm fuzzy on
958
what's happening right now.
What's happening is pulling 958 from the 24-25 budget, not the 25-26 budget.
Yeah. Between now and June 30th.
Why did you, I'm just curious now, why did you choose, when you presented this cost savings on page 11, the first item as why did you zero in on wage freezes first, which I assume you probably knew would get the town staff very concerned. It gets me very concerned. It would get my employees very concerned if that's where I first went, versus maybe let's look at the CIP first. Let's look at where we're spending on projects first, rather than get the entire town staff all worked up because we're proposing right out of the gate wage freezes.
What this shows you, this is not the official budget. Between now and June the 1st, I will prepare you a recommended budget.
Right, but this is what we've been talking about, this book right here.
But this exercise was to show you what happened if you go revenue neutral.
But this is really not, in essence, a revenue neutral, because a revenue neutral means that we can maintain our services without loss or cuts.
No, that's not what it means.
The majority of that, that's what I read. I read that.
If you go revenue neutral, you can't maintain anything.
So, right, we can't maintain anything.
Right.
But in essence, the real meaning of it is that you can maintain it.
Yeah.
We're not maintaining it. So then, in essence, this is really not revenue neutral that we would be going. We would be going revenue net loss.
Yes. But you call it revenue neutral, but I made 3 of y'all say, we are going revenue neutral. So I'm telling you, this is what revenue neutral looks like. When I prepare the official budget for you for July 1st, it will not have a tax rate of .262.
I'd love to hear from you guys.
Well, I mean, it's crystal clear that the idea of going .262 is not an option. And that's one of the reasons why I was requesting a line item detailing the simple fact that retirement's gone up, workers' comp's gone up, medical and life has gone up. I mean, there's some fundamental increases that are unavoidable. So before you even get into the CIP, you're looking at, double-digit growth in a lot of the expenses. So I think what Richard's proposed here is just sort of or what he proposed at the beginning of this booklet is a stark reality of why going the 26.2, i.e. true, flat, plain, and simple revenue neutral, why going that route is just not attainable. And I think that that's what the last 3 meetings have really demonstrated time and again. And just the simple fact that our staff and our police department are so far behind in pay. And, I mean, it makes sense that someone would abandon ship for another $5 an hour if they don't have to change their living address. Get another 10 grand at a different police department. I mean, you don't have to change where you live. I mean, that makes perfect sense. Well, who wouldn't make that change? So obviously we have to do something to sustain where we're at today. And it's obvious from this work and from this exercise that revenue neutral is just not going to get it done.
See, Jason, also you said, you know, why didn't I look at capital first? Because if you go 2.62, there is no capital in that budget. There's no capital to cut.
That's correct.
Because it doesn't show up in the
That's correct.
budget.
You go out to 2028, 2029 budget. I don't know if y'all have looked at that. CIP jumps to $11 million. Now, granted, in there's that fund balloon payment for the Western Parkway, about $5 million. So that's kind of why the fund balance exists, right? So we need to be thinking longer term.
I mean, yes, but you've also got time to cover some of those costs. If it's not going to construction for 2 or 3 years, you've got time to start setting money
You should start
aside.
saving
You
today.
don't necessarily have to use fund balance.
We got to start saving today.
What I would propose in your budget, you've got those 4 DOT projects at 1.375 million. I would suggest you add another 125 to that, which gives you 1.5 million, and your future capital costs ought to be based on that annual $1.5 million.
Last year
You
we
have
were
a source moving forward.
Last year, we were presented a very rosy picture of the state of our finances, and the former town manager said, oh, revenue neutral shouldn't be a problem, and everything sounded great, right? And now we're facing a $2.5 million shortfall, which, I mean, this place fits neatly into that hole.
I don't recall ever hearing Jeff Wells saying
You weren't
that-
there.
Oh, so this is a private conversation you had,
Yeah.
he told you that? Because he has never given that indication to me anyways. He's never believed in that as far as I know.
It's something he mentioned in many of my breakfasts with him, is that we still look like we can do revenue neutral. But again, I think the last 2 days have proven that that's probably not going to be an option. So
Just as an example, a 30-cent tax rate gives you $1.8 million more to put in the budget. So that would cover your shortfall. That might cover some of what the chief's requesting for. That would cover a COLA increase, whatever that would be. Of course, 31 or 32 would be better, but you could cover a lot of those things with a 30% tax rate. But I think 30 is your base rate. I can't see you going under that.
Yeah, you've been recommending the midpoint, 0.32.
And the former mayor, going back to 2015, 16, I think, or was he 17, 18? Steve, right. He presented a picture at that time where we could not go below a 0.34%. So now you're saying that we could do a 3.2. And if back in 2018 or 17, they were saying we couldn't even do a 3.4%, which is why we were at the 3.8. So yeah, I'm trying to understand how everything is going to be covered even at the 3.2 without having to cut. So.
Well, keep in mind, you got increased sales tax revenues every year. You've got increased franchise tax revenues. you're getting more income from Dena's facilities. We're renting those out every year. So, I mean, you do have additional income. You've got more buildings built since, that 34 was mentioned. I mean, so there have been changes. What I hope you left with this, I mean, if a citizen asks you, why aren't you going revenue neutral? I hope I've armed you with enough information. You can say, this is why we
More
can't
have
go
asked me
revenue.
why would we want to go revenue neutral, not why aren't we going. I got some saying, why are you trying to propose that anyway? But,
So
here we are.
if we went with the proposed rate that you said, these cuts that have been mentioned the past 3 days would not have to happen.
There are still things I think you could cut in the budget that you don't necessarily have to have. But I think you could cover, there are things I think you can cut in the budget, not $700,000 worth, but there are additional opportunities to look what's covered in the budget and stuff. But I think 30, 31 to 32, I think will get you where you need to be. Yeah. I'm gonna say I need guidance from y'all. Do you want 30? Do you want 31? Do you want 32? I don't need to bring 32 if you're gonna vote it down.
Yeah, I think it's fairly clear that the board is very interested in seeing a rate that's going to make sure we are paying our employees what they deserve.
Are we clear? Because I'm not hearing that from the two on that end.
I don't know what
I've
else
already
needs to be heard.
said in several meetings, I support the staff, I support the COLA raises. I like to see what we can cut. I don't want bloated government. I don't want wasteful spending. And if we can cut things and give it to our staff, that's my goal. And I don't know that we've completely achieved all that yet.
We absolutely have not achieved it at all. Across the board with all the departments, there's an average of a 16% increase across each department.
I think it's a little early to be demanding us to commit to some rate. We're still in budget talks right now. So we're doing our job, going through line items, finding things that can be cut. That's our duty to the taxpayer.
I don't think that the question was to commit to a rate, but just to commit to hearing what your input is as to where we are in moving forward. That was my understanding.
How about if we stop approving so many residential developments moving forward? Developments that don't pay for themselves.
So there was a motion on the floor, and the motion's been, I've asked for the motion. It has not been made officially.
What is the motion?
The one that's on the screen here. This was the question Dena asked about a half hour ago.
Motion to award the contract for the Waxhaw Learning Center to Gaius Construction in the amount of $958,900 and authorize the interim town manager to execute said contract.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Said no?
I'm sorry, one second. Barbie, just a little clarification. Is this a meeting that we can make that motion?
I wasn't completely clear as to why we were bringing this forward as a budget workshop discussion. I thought this was coming back on the 13th of May for a discussion by the board. If you move forward with this motion, I will have to consult our attorney on whether or not this can be solidified in this meeting, since it's not part of the special meeting notice.
It's not part of the agenda officially at this point?
Correct. So I have to defer with the attorney on this.
Okay. I would request the motion be withdrawn.
Motion withdrawn.
So I'm hearing I need to bring this back to the 13th meeting to redo a recap. And at that time, if y'all have any additional questions, I can answer those. Just to give you a heads up, I will contact them tomorrow to see if they are willing to wait to the 13th. But if they are not, that means we would have to go out to bid again.
Is there any way to get an answer on the idea of a loan? And is the idea of a loan something the board would support? No?
Do a little research on something regarding a loan, because we've only done that for the building of the buildings, the police station, and then the town campus. So I will have to take a look into that and see what I can find out. I don't know how quickly I could get all that information gathered, but I'll do my best.
Okay. It sounds like there's not a lot of strong interest from the board to do it via a loan, but I think with all these projects getting more and more expensive, that might be something we can just have that information in our back pocket from time to time. Thank you.
Yep, no worries. So I'm bringing it back on the 13th.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, do y'all need a break? Do you need to get your wiggles out now? Or are y'all ready to go? Just let's bully through. Okay. Nick, can you pull up our Park and Rec budget? Okay, so I'm going to tag team this presentation with my teammates behind me. I've got Miss Melissa and Miss Robin here with me tonight, and we're going to talk to you about our proposal for budget and where we looked at some cost savings and kind of like the state of Park and Rec. A lot of this material you've seen at retreat, but at any time I'll see if you're glazing over or not, and I'll ask you if you have any questions, but please ask questions, okay? Just to give you a heads up, the Park and Rec Department is celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year. So a lot of these information is us just getting caught up. And just like with our master plan, we've been checking off the list just to get the department to be able to serve our citizens. I always start us off with our vision and mission. And again, you've got that beautiful laminated sheet in front of you to help remind you. Also, I'd like to just give you a heads up. The Park and Rec Department is actually several departments in one. We have our events team, we have our program team, and then we have our parks and facilities, and greenways and trails. So it's multiple kind of mini departments in one department. We become basically an event professional team when those events happen. We're also on the emergency management when it comes to with our parks and greenways. Super excited with the Corps of Engineers and their friends helping us clean out 12 Mile Creek, and that will help us with our flooding for future. So those are one of those things that we are in it for Waxhaw as well. Talked about that levels of service at retreat and how we are at a level 3 and like to stay there. That goes back into what we do on a daily basis and how we serve the citizens of Waxhaw. And just wanted to highlight that. And then I'm going to pass the baton over to Miss Melissa.
Hi. So just to quickly touch on our programs, the majority of the programs that we do offer are for our Waxhaw residents. We don't have a far reach program-wise outside of Waxhaw. We have had over 1,200 participants. It is growing every day because our program team is out there doing programs themselves, and we also have a contracted instructor program as well. So we're able to offer a wide variety of programs from toddler age all the way up to seniors. And we are pretty creative with our programming, especially in the facilities that we have. And we've been able to really utilize the recreation barn for a lot of our programs, which has been a really nice asset for the community. And then going into events, that's our event calendar. This is what we have proposed for the 2025-2026 years. A lot of it is the same events. These are all the ones that we offer in-house. Of course, community events are what makes Waxhaw special. We have a lot of family events that people come to, some regional events that people are traveling from out of town to come to here in Waxhaw. And then we also have some of our smaller ceremonies that we consider as part of this. So 21 total. This is just the breakdown, and we do a lot of these in downtown. Since the opening of the downtown park, these events have kind of shifted, and that's why you'll see some variance in the budget from previous years as to what we have spent this past year and what we expect to spend. But of course, we're open to feedback on what you all want to see, especially regarding a lot of these events. I kind of focus on the 4 main ones. Of course, if you have any questions about any other ones, we are here to answer those. These are our 4 main regional events. Kaleidoscope coming up next weekend, that's May 10th. That is a 1-day festival. It used to be 2 days, and so it has been scaled down to 1, and it has also been scaled down to be concentrated in the downtown park only. July 4th parade, it's our annual parade through downtown. Autumn Treasures is a 2-day festival, and is in downtown and then also at the downtown park, and then the Christmas parade as well. So one of the biggest event expenses that we have is our shuttles. And we all know about our limited downtown parking, and so this is to help alleviate that. So it's just a breakdown of how much parking we take up during certain events because of street closures. During parades, there's no parking along the parade route, so we're really limited in parking downtown. So we're trying to offer this convenience to our residents, especially reaching our larger communities like Lawson, Millbridge, and then along the way. And then our south side, we have shuttle locations at Waxhaw Elementary, but it is a cost. It is expensive. This is just our overall cost of our different events, focusing again on these 4 big ones because these are 4 of our more expensive events. Autumn Treasures being the biggest cost because it is 2 days. And so there's a lot more that comes at this event. There's a lot of free entertainment for our community. It's something that they've come to expect. It's what they enjoy. Parents who have multiple children can't always afford to go to events that cost a lot of money. So think about carnival rides. We have a pretty big expense that we pay, and we don't charge for parents and kids and families to ride those rides, right? Those are free of charge, but it does come at a cost. A parent of multiple children can't necessarily afford to pay for a wristband that may offer unlimited rides or a certain number of rides, ticketed rides, but that is something that we could look at if you're interested. Open to all feedback and ideas. This breakdown kind of shows you the main cost and where we spend the most money for each of these events. The sound and stage, so that is looking at our concerts. We have to bring in a stage. So at the community corner where we hold our Jammin' by the Tracks, we have to bring in a stage, a whole production system. At the amphitheater at the downtown park, when we do music in the park or other events there, we have to have it covered. So we have to rent a tent, then we have to bring in all our sound and production because we don't have shade at the amphitheater right now, no roof there. Entertainment, this includes a lot of the free elements that are at our events for our families and citizens, and that's what those expenses are. Autumn Treasures being the gray one, that is going to be, again, the highest expense because it is the most expensive event that we have. The parades have a lower cost as far as that goes, but again, a lot of that is just the sound and stage. We have the 5 MC stations that are split throughout the parade route, so that way citizens who are in those different areas can hear the announcers and what is actually driving by. Otherwise, they're just looking at vehicles that may be passing through. And going back to some of these bigger events, a big expense that used to be a part of Autumn Treasures was the barbecue competition. That's something that used to be a KCBS, a Kansas City barbecue competition that was extremely costly. Like, I think $41,000 is what used to be spent on that. So that has been scaled down to be more of a local community. We wanted to bring it back to like backyard barbecue. So now we're looking at $5,000 is the expense of that for that part of that event. So we try to be creative with our spending. There's certainly no frivolous spending on our part. We work within our budget, and we try to meet our community's needs and what they ask for and what they've come to expect. We are definitely thoughtful and creative with this spending. We do utilize volunteers at our events. That's also a big saving. That's where those high school students come into play big time for us. We have them doing some of the more minor tasks of picking up trash or helping keep things clean throughout the event footprint. Without the help of those volunteers, that's staff time that has to be used to do those tasks, because these are all things that are part of an event that have to get done. And so that's the value there based on the national average. And of course, this is just going back to the why. We understand the need of being prudent with taxpayer dollars and how we're structuring all of these different offerings. We're definitely thoughtful and creative in this. We're open to feedback. We want to hear your input, what you want to see. If you have certain ideas with it, events or programs. But it is. You think about growing up in a small town, the events are what you remember. I grew up in Matthews, and what I remember growing up is going to Matthews Alive every year. The events, the community aspect, all of that is what makes a memory, what makes a hometown a lot of its character. Before we move, does anybody have any questions? Do you want to talk about programs and events before we go more into detail?
Questions from the board?
I know that we charge a fee for them for, let's say, Autumn Treasures. Have we looked at increasing those fees? Because in a little bit of my research, Matthews charges a lot more,
yes,
and it's per day.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that these vendors are raking it in when they come here. And so maybe we should look at that to offset the cost. I want to give the citizens what they want, but it's a huge cost.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can offset the cost that way, I think that would be helpful. Even if it limits the amount of vendors that come, then we'll just have more quality versus quantity. Instead of 85 wreath vendors, maybe we'll have 70 wreath vendors, So I'm just saying, we have to start looking at those things and, thinking about in your household, what would you do without, and what would you trim, and what wouldn't you trim, and what would you charge your kids to do chores, you know what I mean? Get them to do some things, and that might be one thing. And if we had to scale it down one day, what would you think of that? Just thinking out loud here.
Sure. So we could talk about the fee structure, and just to give you some perspective, some of the other surrounding towns, I was asking them about some of their festivals, what they spend. So a municipality down the road has a one-day festival that is similar to Autumn Treasures. Free carnival rides, shuttles. They have fireworks, and then they also have vendors. I don't mean to say the F word. Vendors and
not
food
this
trucks.
year.
Yeah,
they did not have fireworks this year.
Indian Trail is the town.
Oh.
And they spent, that's $100,000 for one day, 7 hours. So just to kind of give some comparison, that's what we spend on 2 days of Autumn Treasures. So it costs a lot of money. But as far as the fee structure goes, absolutely, that is something
No-brainer.
we're definitely on board with. There's a process, you all approve the fee structure, so that's something that we can bring to the table.
And what is the fee structure for food trucks, for example?
It depends on the event. And I got your mic ready? So we vary the fees based on the size of the event, and that means like crowd size and then also the length of the event. So, Amanda?
So food trucks is not the only thing that we charge a vendor fee for. We kind of have it broken down into categories: small businesses, nonprofits, food trucks, and commercials. But if you're wanting to know specifically food trucks, at Autumn Treasures, we charge them $150 to come for the 2 days. At, let's see, Kaleidoscope, they're paying $75 to come for the 1 day.
Yeah, I think we need to look at that a
We're
little
on
bit
board.
more closely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. All right.
Any other questions about events? Hey.
I'm going to buy a food truck is what I'm going to do.
Hey.
Wait till you get our new fee structure.
Yeah.
Still be killing it.
With the event shuttles, we know that there are some people who are not residents of Waxhaw who use those, and it's a pretty big ticket item. I mean, $46,700 a year that we're paying for event shuttles. Could we maybe look at just keeping them for the people who would really need a shuttle, who are residents?
So with, we can look at the fund map, right? So the fund map basically tells you kind of the layout of Waxhaw. So we are going straight to Lawson, straight to Millbridge. So those are big key neighborhoods, right? Then we're going to the Rec Barn. That's kind of the middle way. And then we're going to the, what's the bank called?
State employees.
State employee. That's kind of like the middle near Stacks. And then the Blythe Mill. So that's kind of like that corridor side. And then our Waxhaw Elementary side. So if it's something you would want us, do you want us to cut down on the type of events the shuttles are at, or the wait time of residents waiting on a shuttle?
Do we have any data on how much the shuttles are used in certain areas? So for Lawson, I live in Lawson, so I don't see it utilized as much as I would think in Lawson. So can we look at that? Because
yes, ma'am.
If they're leaving from Lawson, that's one thing. But if people are parking at the Rec Barn or in that area and from Indian Land, and now we're providing a service to those in Indian Land who have impact fees, and that sort of thing.
I understand that.
Yes, we do have the data of the amount of traffic on each shuttle and how many shuttles we're able to run per hour. Millbridge, the Millbridge to Rec Barn route is our heaviest trafficked route. We had to add another shuttle to that route. So that one has 3. Waxhaw Elementary has 1 shuttle that runs back and forth, and Lawson has 2. And that's based off of the data and the numbers that the drivers collect at pick up and drop off.
Yeah, I mean, just the total events cost per year of $434,920 is huge. I mean, I just would love to see ways to bring that down. And the event shuttles is a large item on here. There are events that actually I think that a lot of the longer term residents really appreciate, like, July 4th and Christmas. Those are the lower ticket items. I see some room for economizing in here.
Can I get a clarification for our event line is 239. Is that
we got
what
to
you're
print
looking
out?
at?
That's not what we got. We got to print out the.
Our event line is $240,650 on page 86.
Well, we have a printout here that says $434,920
for
a total events cost.
No.
Does that include staffing and overtime?
It includes all the events, Dena. So the police department, administration, business development includes.
It's not just parking.
It's not just parks and
Oh
rec.
my goodness, you almost have me like, I know we didn't spend that much money. Okay, so that's overarching everyone, including other teammates. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure I'm clarified. Any other great suggestion on the fee schedule? Totally get better cost recovery. And some direction, though, I heard still about how to be creative about our events is, do you want us to look into having a cost for the rides? Do you want us to have?
Yeah, either that
that's the
or-
kind of direction we kind of need.
Yeah, either that or encourage people to carpool with one another, you know.
I wish they would.
It's a very short distance.
I guess if you explore a fee, it would, if they don't live in Waxhaw, there should certainly be a fee, but you have to ask for ID, and it could get hairy.
Yeah, that's going to require another staff, sorry, Melissa, that's going to require another staff member or volunteer to check ID.
The thing about ticket sales too is then it requires staff to collect money, and then you're also looking at having a credit card processor that's on site. There's just some other things, like yes, absolutely, but there's going to be additional costs for that as well.
Any other feedback? Okay. Y'all doing okay? All right, we're almost there. We're almost there. Okay, so we're going to go into parks, facilities, and greenways. We had the fund map up to kind of give you the lay of the land. So we have currently 4 full-time staff within the travel park staff, and then 1 part-time that we just filled. Thank you, HR, for helping us do that, because we were basically drawing straws on who came on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday from the whole team to cover the weekend hours until we got that wonderful new part-time staff. We are down 2 staff members on this team. One went to the school district because of what's been going on, and we lost another one. So we are in the process of looking to hire back those 2. The request was to add 2 more staff members. The way the department's kind of broken out is downtown park. We just found some stats out that the downtown footprint, the park itself, saw over 120,000 people from opening day, May 11th, to last Friday. That is amazing in itself. I got goosebumps when Melissa pulled up the data. That park requires staffing. It currently has 3 full-time staff that rotates out of 12 plus hours per day to keep it running and keeping with the rentals, making sure citizens have what they need, making sure there's no mischief making going on out there. All these things come into play. But our traveling staff takes care of the rest of our park system. So for example, when you come back to this fund map, they take care of Nesbitt, they take care of the barn, they take care of Town Creek, Barnes, the skate park, the community corner, the McDonald House, the meeting place, Dare Still. They take care of all those other places in a rotation of us just trying to get the maintenance done, and that includes lawn maintenance for those facilities. So that is a lot for those 4 to handle. Plus, when we turn into the event team, we have to forego some of our daily chores to become that professional event team. So that's taken them away from their daily duties. So that is what that current staffing is. And then we were looking into getting 2 additional staff, but with understanding our budget, we forgoed that, and we'll try again for next year, so that we took those off the budget to be mindful of y'all's requests of really digging deep on what our requests are. The Park and Rec events, this graph basically shows how we work with our community partners, our town departments events, third-party events, and then we help out our PD friends as well. So these are not what's under Park and Rec.
this is what we go out and help our teammates. But this also takes up a lot of our time. And so this is, again, a team effort. But I just want y'all to be aware that our time is not just spent on those 21 events, that we have a lot more that come up. Just like for today, when we're able to have our news thing this morning. We all went into production mode of making sure everything was nice and shiny. Public Service helped out with downtown with the bandstand. The park team did our chores early at Downtown Park to make sure that we were ready and camera ready. Daily task. So this goes into basically what we do on a daily. I'm a stickler for a clean bathroom. If I came to a park and they didn't have clean bathrooms, I did not come back with my kids. And that is something that we pride ourselves as to have a clean, safe facility. So we spend a lot of time on that restroom maintenance and to make sure that our facilities are clean and safe. Moving forward, the park system, because everybody enjoys our outdoor spaces, which I'm so grateful that they do, and we're able to provide for them. It's growing, and the demands of it is growing every year. We want to make sure that we are mindful of that, but also mindful of keeping our great staff that we have. I don't want to lose anyone else because that hurts team morale, as well as that continuity of making sure that we can keep up the level of service. But keeping our area safe and ensuring our staff is top priority. Deferred maintenance. So you'll find that I've put on the list of things that we would love to go for this year. Then projects that we had on the CIP that we talked about at retreat that we will, push out to future years, and we'll go through those. But when you defer maintenance, just like we talked about with the roads earlier, and we talked about with PD and with public services, there's a cost to it, and we have to be mindful of that on our facilities. Okay. Ms. Robin, you're up.
So I just wanted to mention that we had talked about rentals in the past, and you guys wanted to get a little bit more information on the revenues. So I have come up with kind of the list of a snapshot of what our rental revenue looks like. I won't go through this whole thing, but I want to touch on a couple of the facilities that are the most kind of outstanding as far as the rental side of things. Rec Barn obviously has become a very big rental space, not only for programs, of course, but also for rentals. We are only able to barely keep up. We're not really able to do all the requests that we're asked for due to staffing. We have a part-timer in the evenings, but then they can kind of, the programs team kind of supplements for other rentals on Saturdays or things like that to try to make things work, but we're not able to do more than what we are. But this is what we're basically bringing in currently. We could expand that based on more part-time staff, but that's where we are for the Rec Barn. The Downtown Park, I want to mention, those numbers are actually just basic snapshots for our busier fall and springtime. So think winter, and nobody's going to be out there in the middle of summer, right? But those numbers are actually great when you consider that that's a very short window of those seasons. And then the meeting place we've already talked about, 5 out of 7 days, definitely always booked at least one small group. Those fees, when you think about almost $3,000 for that period of time, it's a $12 per hour rate. So it is not an expensive rate. We keep it low for our nonprofits, for our church groups, things like that. So that is just some highlights that we wanted to mention. But we've collected over $54,000 in rental rates in just this snapshot. This is just another breakdown of this, but I did want to mention that as far as staffing's concerned, we did mention that in the retreat we were asking for a staff member to be able to help us with this rentals, because with the rentals have also increased our workload in keeping up with requests, inquiries, setups, cleanups, all those kind of things. So it's basically taken about 35% of all of our workload that it used to be a very small percent, but we have taken that staff request off. So we are all still just going to be dividing and conquering to make what we can happen with our rentals. And then Dena's going to talk about the Nesbitt Park.
So I just want to give you a snapshot of Nesbitt, the reason why we don't have rentals at Nesbitt. We have an agreement with the WA so they have the majority of that time. So at this time, we don't have that as a revenue source, because it's kind of out of whack when it comes to other facilities. I just want to make sure that y'all are aware of that, and that we are only utilizing from the outside of our WA is that 1.4%, so y'all understand that part of it. Next.
And then the meeting place, I won't go too far into this. We've already talked about the Learning Center earlier tonight. So it's just basically showing what the capabilities of the Learning Center would be as far as a rental is concerned, based on what the meeting place brings in now and what that usage would be for the Learning Center as far as more meeting space, a larger space than what we currently have with the meeting place, and the fact that there's possible a kitchenette or some sort of other opportunities for rentals in that facility. So that just kind of gives you a quick snapshot of what that would look like.
So going back to the rec barn, these are the different amenities that we rent out at that facility. As Robin said, we have had about $30,000 in revenue based on our limited availability right now. So while we aren't meeting the community demand, we actually keep a list of all the rentals that we have to turn away, and we're turning them away because either the space is already rented or we don't have staff coverage to be in the facility while the rental is there. And this is a multi-million-dollar facility, so we don't want it unstaffed. Even when staff is present, we've got a baseball team that's there in the batting cages. Staff is having to go and tell kids to stop running around the building, don't touch that light switch, don't do XYZ. So there's a purpose for staff to be on site while we have these rental groups there. And a lot of it is for safety and for the maintenance of the building, so that way it's not getting out of hand. So this was the original staffing request that would help meet the needs of the requests that we get for the rentals. At this facility, the majority of our rentals are ongoing. These are long-term seasonal team rentals. And so based on the requests that we've gotten from these seasonal rentals, that's the staff that we requested. That would be 2 additional part-time staff with those hours. So looking at building B, that's the building in the back, that has the fitness area. So we would be able to open up that building for fitness hours there. We could adjust that to be evening only. We could adjust it to be on weekends only, but that's what we'd be looking at to operate at a higher capacity to meet the current requests that we get. But given budget, we were offered this 10 to 12 hours part-time position. So this is what it would kind of look like. So it would meet the need of staffing building B in the evenings for some of those seasonal rentals. And that would be a big help. And so we wouldn't have to turn away certain teams that were looking for that specific type of space. So it's that big indoor turf space, that's field hockey, lacrosse, soccer. Those are the bigger team rentals requests that we're getting that we're not always able to accommodate because we don't have a staff person who can be in that facility. So a part-time person would help with that. The next one is the Learning Center, so it's kind of maybe a moot point of this for this next fiscal year. So if we were operating at capacity for what the Learning Center is projected to be, this is what it would look like staff-wise in a perfect world. However, given the budget, this is what was proposed, but even now, looking at staffing, it may not even be in the budget for next year, right? So these numbers wouldn't even be there. And we would definitely look into utilizing volunteers to assist, to supplement, and only looking at part-time staff for that facility and just run it as on demand. So then we'd be able to compile the data to see what kind of use this facility is really going to get and what the community needs. And that's something that we can come to you all with a later request further down the road.
So this goes into that continue career building. So like a lot of our other departments, we had, I always say it wrong. Career development. Thank you. That goes into that career development with our current staff. You've already heard this with the study. Park and Rec, we had a few that actually had some adjustments, but we were at the low end of the adjustment. So we're still not where we need to be, but you've heard that story the last 3 days. So this would help out with getting that career development on that career development plan that a lot of us have implemented to help keep talent and to help them in their growth career guide, but also keep them here, keep that talent here, which is something that we desperately need. Okay, priority-wise, the Learning Center has been on y'all's priority list for the last 2.5 years as one of your top priorities. It's on the lobbyist list as your top priority, and that's still a priority on here. David G. Barnes and the skate park master plan, that would be probably around 100 to 120. If we want to delay it for another year, it's totally doable. But when you delay deferred maintenance, we're patching the skate park now. We will continue to patch it, but there will become a point where the playground, because there's no replacement parts to our playground. So there will be a point where there's no more playground. And so I'm ugly truth about it. This is where we're at. So Barnes and the skate park will have to be looked at soon if we want to move it to next year. I understand completely, but I just need to make sure y'all are aware of what the consequences of that. We do have a grant with the Carolina Thread Trail for the connection between Millbridge and Town Creek. That piece of trail has been in the works for over 8 years. It was in the works before I got here. That would be amazing if we can get that started this year. We do have a specific fund for greenways. So if you also choose to use that fund, we can move forward with that. But again, we have a minimum of 3 years for that grant that we have to use that in. So if we don't use it this year, then we need to make a better priority for it for next year. Okay? And we've already talked about the Learning Center, unless y'all have any other questions. All right, we're moving on. The park master plan, basically it would help us update what happens in this corridor to lead you into the downtown park. With the downtown master plan, that was actually something they looked at to open up that corridor, so the line of sight. We do get a lot of questions about, I don't know where it's at. Well, 120,000 people found it, but we still have issues about that and questions about that daily. With the grant, again, this is that 4 piece right there. That's that connection piece. We've been working on it for a minute and wanted to see if we can fulfill that sooner than later, but totally understand if we need to wait a year. Okay, this is the list that we took off. Again, very mindful what y'all asked us to really dig deep and look at things that we can wait on or push out to future CIPs. So the downtown shades, we're going to go for the grant next year to see if we can do that. Nesbitt, all that paving, lighting, camera, took it off for this time. That's any extra foul ball netting, wait until next year. The rec barn, all the infrastructure that we went through that laundry list. The Southern Maintenance Center, wait to do the renovations to that until we're at a better standpoint. We can still have a touchdown space at 317 until we decide on what that looks like in the future. The bridge at Prescott, we are waiting on the Great Trails Grant. We still don't know that yet. With the western part of the state, it is taking a lot of those fundings, so we don't know when that's going to come about, so that would be pushed out to future years. CIP projects at Town Creek, and then if we have those opportunities, we'll just have to wait on future lands or upcoming greenways.
I have one question.
Yes.
So were these cuts based on this revenue neutral budget? So if we chose to go raise the tax rate not raise the tax rate, but not go with revenue neutral, would we be able to put any of these projects back in? Is that what we're assuming? Because one of the projects that had me thinking was the maintenance facility, because if we upfit that, then we would then be able to sell the property.
317.
Yeah.
Yes, that would, when you give Mr. Richard direction of what the number is, and then he can give us the basically playing field, and then we can look back at that and then come back with projects, correct? And then that way we can work within that basic, the 0 to whatever the number is, but we don't have that information, so we basically were given the information to go down to 0 until y'all tell us where you want to come back up at. And again, I'm fully aware of the state of where we're at, and I'm not willing to risk your family in front of you.
And then, I'm sorry, one more thing, and this may be jumping ahead, but on the staffing that you mentioned for the Learning Center.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know you had a part-time person, the program person, a staff member. But if somebody just wanted to be in there on the computer, it's not a program, would they still be able to just use the computers?
Yes, ma'am. So the way we have it set up in the lobby area would be a computer right there, so that way we can help. So that staff members there to help out. The computer lab area is set up for classes or the teens,
Because I just know when I used to work at the library, the busiest time that the citizens came in was like 4 o'clock to close, because they were actually taking online classes. Like, there were members of our town that do not have computers at home or are trying to better themselves by taking online college classes. And they would come to the library to do that. And that's why this is so needed. And I want to make sure that we're open for the times that they need it.
So that would be what Melissa was talking about earlier about how to adjust. And because we're going off of what the library kind of hours were, but we also have to work in the hours that we're given to be there, right? And that's something that, I talked to the library, and because we got that feedback from them to come up with that list of what's in this building. So yes, we would adjust if depending on the citizens' needs.
Dena, could you go back to the previous slide?
Oopsie daisy. Okay.
So these ones that you were suggesting to defer, do you know an estimated total of all of these?
It's on the CIP. That long list of where we had it per year, we went over it at retreat.
Yeah.
For example, we talked about the paving. We have got some alligator around the roundabout because it always floods there. So we have
I could
those things.
I could probably pull those out from what you did to get that.
But we can get that to you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I can dig it up. But in all of these, you're suggesting the fiscal year 26, 27. One of them is out to 28. And when I look at the 5-year projection for the CIP, fiscal year 26 is 7.8 million. 27 is 7.3 million. So you're suggesting to take these and put those in which one of those? Because then those are going to theoretically bump up, right?
I was given direction to take them off this year.
Right.
So the only way to take
but
them.
this says where you think they might go.
If you deferred maintenance for too long, it's going to cost you more in the end.
Yeah, I get it.
So to have it sooner than later is where we put them.
Mm-hmm. I get it, but if we're not going to raise taxes on the citizens, then I'm kind of wondering where we're going to fit this into the projection. And I'm looking at the 5-year one. So we take these out, make the chart go down a little bit this year, and then we're up another 2 million next year?
Again, that's y'all's decision.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you.
No worries. All right. So we have that we talked about moving the phase 3 with the shades to next fiscal year. This is that laundry list that still needs to happen at Nesbitt. Again, these are like for example, the dugout replacements. We're going to have to take them out. That means they're not going to have anything there until we can get those replaced. It's been deferred maintenance. This was one of those areas where it was in another party's line item, and now it's in our line item, and we're taking over responsibility. So that is something that we'll have to replace. The foul ball, that's something we will again push on to the next year. The rec barn, the external lights, we were able to get at least 2 parking lot lights up off of the building, and that's helped, but we still need to put more external lights up. The things that we talked about at the retreat, all is just this laundry list of things, again, pushing them out. The maintenance center, so this is taking the place of our, we still have our public services with the taking care of the cemetery equipment here. We also, this will turn into what we have at 317. Everything comes here. And then we keep all of our lawn equipment, and then eventually have their touchdown spaces in this facility that utilizes, that helps support the downtown park, but also our downtown when we have events. And then that bridge connection we talked about. And I am ready for some questions.
Ashley, I don't know if you have a microphone. Do you know the value of the 317?
Let's see. So
Remember,
there are
since
two parcels.
There's two Church
so
Street.
one is 230,000. The other is 180,700. And again, that's just the assessed values from the county's reval, which was done based on fair market value.
And how much did we estimate to upfit the maintenance facility?
So with our estimate with the roof changeover and all the things that need to be inside of that, it was closer to the upper ends of 300, probably 350 to 375. Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Anyone? Nothing from me. Is there a question?
This is the conversation time. So is there something? I know that we've got some due outs for events. I know that we have to look at that and make sure you get the CIP list. Is there anything else that I need to be aware of, or how can we help you make informed decisions?
One thing that I was thinking about, and especially in terms of the rec barn, and we'll want to do the same thing when the learning center comes online, is an analysis of exactly what its peak demands are and how we're meeting those peak demands. Because I noticed the rec barn, one of the buildings you've got from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I know there's a large portion of our very active population that's fairly tied up from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So I'm just curious if that is the best time of day to have that facility open and available. I know we have retirees and we have, other folks, stay-at-home moms and such, that would utilize the facilities in the middle of the day. But when I think of the batting cages, I mean, the batting cages need to be going till 10 or 11. It's just things like that.
So we do have some homeschoolers that actually utilize the batting cages in the afternoon. So that's a time when they don't have to compete with other sports and teams that are renting the batting cages in the evenings.
Certainly.
So we do have some utilization of the rec barn in the afternoon, and then just ongoing programs in the mornings and early afternoon. A lot of our inclusive programs for our adults with disabilities happen in the early afternoon at the rec barn. And then the morning is a lot of our seniors and our toddler programs.
Certainly. And if the facility is getting fully utilized during the day, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., then that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying shut it down those hours. It's just a matter of making sure that it is open during the times that it's going to be peak demand.
Absolutely. We would love to meet the demands of the community and make sure that it is available when we have staffing there.
So is it your contention then that we have it staffed at peak demand hours?
Yeah, especially looking at the learning center, when we'll find out what the demand is from the community and when people want to use it, when the popular times are, that's when we would want to staff it, yes. Does that answer your question?
Well, I mean, in terms of the rec barn, for instance, is it currently staffed during peak demand hours?
Most of it. We do have that part-time person who is there in the evenings, but that's only in one facility. So an additional part-time person would be in the other building during those peak hours of that 5 to 8:30 p.m. A lot of our rentals don't go past 9 o'clock just because they are kids that are in school, and so they're not running practice past that time.
Okay.
So, Commissioner Dawn, I would like to hear your input. You've been kind of vocal about needing to make cuts, and I was wondering if you could go ahead and discuss that here so that I don't have to read it in a blog post tomorrow.
No.
That was unnecessary. I think we've talked about cuts. I'd like to ask Commissioner Hicks if in the admin budget, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Town Manager Hicks. In the admin budget, did we still reserve an assistant town manager position and a communications position?
The assistant town manager's position is not covered in next year's budget.
Okay.
The comms position is funded in this current budget year. And they're currently interviewing for that position now, but it's in the existing budget year.
Right, but then we would need to carry that forward. So if you want to talk about a cut, I would suggest cutting that and putting that toward raises.
I'm not in favor of that.
Okay. Orion.
I just had a comment. You guys were discussing the master plan earlier and the triangular property. And just to give you some information on that, that is half of that property is floodplain, and it's on a curve. So the county had it appraised last year at $100,000 and raised it to almost $700,000 this year. So I'd question that value that they have stated there, and I would question even wanting to develop that land because any driveway onto it, whether it was commercial, would become a safety issue.
Is that the Wasaki lot you were talking about?
I believe that's what you
The
call it, the
1.6.
triangular land. The Kensington Drive between.
No, that's the Sunny's Way Trail is.
That's Sunnyways, so yeah, that's,
This is trail.
okay, yeah. So we would never want to do anything like that.
Possibly like a little dog park
Right.
kind of thing.
But
That's
if you're
not.
looking at land that we owned, I don't see the value in it that the county sees it.
But would anybody even want to buy that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, the Greenway would be extremely valuable to Waxhaw, to get you all the way from, what is that, Bonds Grove Road right there, and all the way to in downtown. That's amazing. We're about to get amazing with going from South Carolina to Lawson soon. So, again, when opportunities come about, how to be ready. But also understand budgets. Get that as well. Well, y'all have been great. I appreciate the conversation. And that y'all, because this is a lot. I knew ours would be. But that's something, we make up your community. And we want to make sure that you're getting the information you need to make informed decisions. So if there is any extra information that you want, please reach out to us. We're the experts in our area, and we would love to talk to you about it. Love to talk to you about it. So please contact us if you have any questions, and so we can help you with those decisions.
As it relates to the rec barn, again, the question about usage and staffing, is there a way to put together some sort of, I guess, cost benefit on providing that staffing? In other words, a part-timer pays for itself because of the staffing, or a full-timer and a part-timer, you're going to get 1.5 times your money back, or you're only going to get 70% of your money back. Is there a way to kind of do that type of analysis so we can better understand how that staffing works?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, we can look at the rental requests that we've gotten and give you that number, and then look at what the cost of the staffing is to see how that compares, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, because I mean, the premise here is that if we apply more staffing to these facilities, we're going to get more usage, i.e. more rentals,
Correct.
more importantly, more income.
Yes.
And then the question then becomes, okay, will that income offset that salary? If so, to what degree? 100%? 50%, 125%. So I think if we can put some numbers around that.
Yeah, we can, because we're definitely looking at part-time staff only for that situation.
And then, yeah, creative ways of maybe charging for the shuttles. Sounds like a way of getting a little bit of that money back. I understand having to collect tickets and having to collect money is a bit of a pain, but with the use of going to the kids' soccer game was a pain because you had to buy tickets with a QR code and all that other crap. So I feel there's a pain level that's already been accommodated. So maybe we can capitalize on that by simply using QR codes to charge folks for that ride. And I'm not saying charge anything much more than $1 or $2. $5 a ride, I think might even be on the high end, but exactly. It's just one of those things where you pay for it on the ride in and then you don't have to pay for it on the way out, something like that.
Are you're talking specifically about shuttles, charging
Shuttles
for
for
shuttles?
the events, yes, since that is such a high cost to all the events.
And I'll just mention that on the revenues for the rentals that we presented on that slide, if you want to take a look at that, that gives you a good understanding of what we're bringing in, which is why I provided that piece.
Yeah.
So that might show you what could help with those part-time staff and what that would be too. We can run more reports as well, but I just wanted to kind of refer you back to that slide.
No, and I was thinking about that slide, and the slide only looks like it, covers one person.
Well,
So,
54,000 for.
Exactly.
But if you had, depending on how many hours that part-timer had, things like that.
That's what I'm wondering,
There's
yeah.
ways you can look at those opportunities, yeah.
exactly.
Well, and if you have a lot of demand at the rec barn, it sounds like you have more demand than what you can fill with your staffing, right?
Correct.
Maybe the fees should go up a little bit to curb the demand.
You're trying to get me hurt. We can look into that.
Careful, they got bats.
Any other questions?
Anything else? All righty. Well, thank you.
All right, good job, team.
Thanks, Park and Rec.
Prior to the start of the meeting tonight, I was approached by Commissioner McMillan.
There it is.
In reference to a question she asked me last night on officer to citizen ratio and what that national average is. So she wanted me to clarify that before we left tonight. So I just want to clarify that a lot of police departments go by the one officer per 500 citizens. As I had talked about in January during the retreat, I did a different equation. I looked at the calls for service that we respond to, the time we spend on those calls for service, and then I used an equation that a lot of other chiefs are using now to find out what ours would be, and ours was one patrol officer per 700 citizens. So does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yes, that's clear. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it sounds like the next step then is with some of this input and some of this guidance, Commission, or I'm going to make the same mistake. That was your fault. Anyway, Mr. Hicks, so it sounds like you have a lot of information and a lot of input, kind of in a lot of directions, but it sounds like, without speaking too forwardly, that folks agree that we need to cover the cost of our staff. And I think the next step is for you to put together some numbers and some potential tax rates and the implications therein.
So is he going to put the numbers together, or are we going to meet to go over this at least one more time with ourselves to have more of a talking session as to what we've already heard, or?
I think that's a good question. Based on some conversations that Mr. Hicks and I have been having, it sounds like one of the things that might make sense is this tax rate gives you these projects and these raises. And this tax rate gives you these projects and these raises. And that's kind of how I was envisioning the next step to go. Is that something that the commission, the board would see as agreeable? Or do we want to see something a little different from the next step? We could certainly have another 2 or 3 hour evening meeting.
No, I just didn't know if the board itself wanted to have more discussion amongst the board regarding what we've already heard, or if we're proceeding in that manner. I'm just for clarity as to how we're moving.
Yeah. Any other thoughts from the members of the board on what to do next?
I like your suggestion there about, ideally we'd have like a dashboard with sliders and, it would all automatically
slide all the
update.
dials and here you go.
Yeah.
No, I think in broad terms, it would be good to understand what tax rate gives us what. The whole book starts with these drastic cuts. And I think what we're looking for then is the tax rate that starts undoing those cuts in conjunction with some of the cost saving and cost cutting mitigation and ideas that have been presented over the last 3 sessions. So just sort of bundling all that work into your large-scale cuts for revenue neutral, then start saying, okay, the revenue goes up this much, we don't have to cut these. And the revenue goes up that much, we don't have to cut those. And that, obviously, it can't be a sliding scale that we can just dial, but I think if you can give the board 3 or 4 numbers that we can then stew over, and to Commissioner McMillan's point, that might be a point to schedule a meeting and have greater discussions in some of those details.
Well, even as we discuss items, we could have just running numbers on screen and,
if there was a way to do that.
Take this away, how does it affect the numbers?
Exactly.
Add this on, how does it affect the numbers?
I agree.
And Mr. Hicks, you had said that you did see some areas where they were cutting, and I'd like to hear your suggestions on that. Because we want to be able to do what we can, but we also want to be prudent and respectful of the taxpayers' money.
I guess my question, would you be comfortable at starting that at 30 cents, look at 31 cents, and then 32 cents? I don't see much need of going below 30. I mean, you may feel different. That's why I need some input from y'all. But
That's a good question for the board. Are we comfortable starting at 30 cents, or do we want to see something lower?
Got to start somewhere, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Hicks, you've done a lot of budgets, so we'll go with what you think.
you can always change it later. That's just a starting point. I do kind of need to know what your thoughts are on salary increases. I mean, are you comfortable with like a 3 to 4% COLA? Would you like to have merit increases in those budget proposals?
I think the budget proposal should include the necessary increases to keep Waxhaw an attractive town to work in. And the long story short there, it sounds like the 3 and 3 is a starting point with a potential strategic look or closer look at areas where there's real gaps. I'm not getting into strong disagreement on that, so thank you.
So the 3 and the 3 is just a starting point, and then where there's real gaps, such as with the police department, then to take a deeper dive look into their salaries to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be it the department as a whole or individual members that are especially impacted.
I couldn't hear Commissioner Woodruff.
I said we have to start somewhere, so I think we have to look at the 3% merit in COLA, and then look at what Chief Dex presented and see what we can do so that we don't lose more police officers. We keep them safe, we keep the town safe, and take into consideration that I am very aware of how they lose people and then they can't get people. We can't have that happen.
No, it feels a little like a poker game where we're going to push in 6, and then the guys next door go 8. And next thing you know, you're 2% further behind than you were a week ago. So I think that's something we need to be conscious of as well. All righty. We feeling good then? No. Are we feeling good about the next steps? I don't think anybody's feeling good in general at this moment. But we got here, we're going to work our way through it. I think we're a capable staff. I think we have a very capable assistant town manager or interim town manager with Mr. Hicks. And I think we will get through this. And as far as the staff goes, all I can say is bear with us. We're going to keep treading water. We're going to keep paddling, and we'll get out of this. Anything else, Mr. Hicks? All righty. With no further ado, then, could I get a motion to adjourn this special Board of Commissioners budget meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
I heard a bunch of ayes, so yes, we are now adjourned. Thank you all.